is Tom O'Driscoll, and everybody is speaking on item 4A. So, Tom, you want to go up there?
Okay.
Okay, and you'll,
This one?
oh, this one, okay. And just as a reminder, I will also mention, so public commenters, you'll have up to 3 minutes to speak, and there's obviously the stopwatch there, and all the public commenters are asked to conduct themselves in a courteous, respectful manner. So, and talk on a budget-related topic. So, okay, so Tom.
Great. My name is Tom O'Driscoll. I live at 4006 Austin Meadow Drive, and I'm here to talk about the problem we're having with feral pigs in our area. And I appreciate, I went to Rick and Carol about this, and they said that they would bring it up at this meeting, and I'm very appreciative of that. It seems to me the first and most legitimate job of any government is to protect citizens against bodily injury and property damage, and these feral pigs represent a threat to both. Since May 5, our block has been visited 5 times by these feral pigs. And while they've destroyed yards and electrical equipment and wreaked havoc, fortunately, thank God, no pets have been hurt and no people have been hurt. 2 days after one of the visits from these pigs, I had a painting contractor come to my home, and as he was leaving, he noticed all the torn up grass that I had yet to repair yet. And he said, what caused this? And I said, it was pigs. And he got very animated, and he said, a buddy of mine on another project on Palm Royale somehow got into the middle of a herd of pigs and got seriously hurt. I had already reported our visit from the pigs to the city, and I said, oh, I'd love to talk to him and find out more about it. And he said, no, this person won't speak to anyone about it. I can only conjecture why, if it's a citizenship issue or something like that. So I know of at least one injury in the city that occurred to this, and it's only a matter of time until it happens again. Sarah, who's here, also had found that the city of Southlake, very comparable city to Sugar Land outside of Dallas, they have a program of eradication, that the only thing to do is to trap and euthanize, which is what we hope the city will resume doing, what they did in my understanding, 2025. Thank you, that's all I had to say.
Thank you, Tom. And next speaker, number 2, Gary Foreman.
I gotta see if I can make it over there.
Take your time.
Yeah. All right, my name is Gary Foreman. Hi, Mike. I live in Sugar Creek, and I was here last year to give a brief presentation, and basically all I said was, at that time, was the reasons why my father, who had like 1.4 million constituents, raised taxes or didn't raise taxes. And I am against the raising of the taxes. And I don't see any reason why. I actually sat down and read all 240 some odd pages of the pamphlets that were handed out. And I can't find a reason why we should increase taxes. It's not going to help anybody that it can wear. It's going to help staff, but it's not going to help the people. And that's my primary concern, was helping the people. So I'm against it. That's basically all I just wanted to say, and let you guys know. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary. Speaker number 3, David Bristow.
Good morning, Mayor McCutcheon and Council. My name is David Bristow. My wife and I have lived in Commonwealth for 38 years, raised our family there. Been actively involved in the Civic Association for the past 15 years. I'm appearing here this morning along with Jim Leverman and Ron Frerick from our neighborhood, looking for ways to manage the feral hogs that plague our neighborhood and many other Sugar Land neighborhoods. While Jim and Ron discuss control measures such as grub treatments, fences, and traps, I'm interested in discussing Sugar Land supported schemes to coordinate the response of the city and the various neighborhoods to the impact of the hogs. For years, we've been advised to submit photos of hog damage in our neighborhoods, but I've never seen any evidence that the data are collected, interpreted, and stored in any useful manner. Given that Animal Services focuses on domestic pets, the information is of little or no interest to that department. So who receives the information and does anything with it? However, the city does have the mechanisms in place to communicate with the various entities such as levy districts and HOAs, and can act as a clearinghouse for information on the distribution of hogs and the damage they cause. Adding a layer to the city interactive map will provide a quick reference for the interested party to see where hog activity has been reported in a manner like the crime maps. Entities such as HOAs can check to see where there is activity and perhaps learn from where the hogs are entering their neighborhood so they know when to hire a trapper and where to set the traps. The information should also be of interest to the city, particularly the Public Works Department, since feral hogs don't recognize boundaries, and the city parks, rights of way, and other city property must receive damage too. Please find a way to support the various levy districts and HOAs by creating a clearinghouse for feral hog distribution information. Posting reports on an interactive map should not take very much effort. Email and text alerts can be sent to interested parties when the map is updated. The city can also benefit from the information by using it to support efforts to limit or prevent hog damage to city property. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Our next speaker is Jim Lieberman.
Good morning, Mayor, council members. My name is James Leverman, and I serve as president of our homeowner association, Commonwealth Civic Association. Commonwealth includes 1,100 homes and approximately 80 acres of HOA maintained property, much of it along Commonwealth Boulevard, which the city has designated as a signature boulevard. I'm here to ask the city to help us address an ongoing feral hog problem that has affected our neighborhood for more than 5 years. This is a public issue that should be addressed by the city, not left solely to the HOA. Feral hogs are not native wildlife in Texas. They're classified as an exotic invasive species, and the Texas Park and Wildlife Department notes that there is no closed season for them in the state of Texas. These animals cause millions of dollars of damage across the state each year, and Commonwealth has experienced that damage firsthand. Despite investing approximately $700,000 annually to maintain our landscaping, we continue to face repeated and significant destruction caused by the feral hogs. Commonwealth has taken responsible steps to reduce the damage. We treat our landscape for grub worms, a preferred food source for the hogs, and we spent more than $123,000 over the past 5 years addressing this problem. Previously, the city owned 2 hog traps and used them in areas such as the Kinder Morgan property off of Scenic Rivers Drive. However, according to Melissa Hobson, who we met with recently, she's the Animal Services Administrator, the city no longer provides this service. We met with Ms. Hobson and her staff on June the 19th of this summer, and was told the city management position is that feral hog removal falls outside the scope of Animal Services. I respectfully request that the city budget $90,000 per year to trap and remove feral hogs from Commonwealth and any other Sugarland neighborhoods affected by this issue. A qualified third-party trapping service could be used so the city pays only for the work needed. Commonwealth is asking the city to partner with us as a practical, targeted solution to protect public and private property, preserve the appearance of a signature boulevard, and address a problem that individual homeowner associations cannot solve alone. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Our next speaker is Bina Sanjay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Meenakshi Sanjay, and I have lived in Sugarland for more than 20 years. Currently living in 15 Barringer Place, which is Commonwealth and Elkins area. I'm also a board member of my HOA, and I'm a board member of Fort Bend Levy Improvement District 14. I am here today because our neighborhood has a serious same feral hog problem, and we need city's help. In past few months, we have seen a group of about 30 feral hogs moving through our neighborhood. That's not a small number. It's big enough to tear up any entire yard in one night. They are digging up lawns, destroying flower beds, damaging landscaping, but this isn't about yards or plants anymore. This is becoming safety and security issue. They are unpredictable around people and pets. We have kids who walk to bus stops in the early morning. We have people who walk their dogs at night. If one of the hogs feel cornered or threatened, someone could seriously get hurt. This is a real risk to our families, and it's only getting worse. Our residents brought this problem to our HOA board meeting, and our landscaper brought this issue in our Fort Bend Lake 14 board meeting. It's very hard to keep the levee area nice and clean. Trapping and removing feral hog is not something a volunteer board can manage. So today, I'm asking the council to please take some action, like setting up a trapping or removal program. And I thank council and everybody for this opportunity for me to speak. And I really appreciate what our city does for the residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mina. Our next speaker is Ken Hainline.
My name is Ken Hainline. I reside at 3203 Mesquite Drive since 2001. I have been a leisure learning yoga instructor with the City of Sugar Land since 2007, teaching at both the Recreation Center while also volunteering weekly at the Senior Center. Many of you received an opinion report from me last month regarding the 2026 fee changes affecting leisure learning instructors. Today I would like to give you the 3-minute big picture version focusing on indoor facilities and by sharing thoughts on the 2027 proposed budget. We are on Year 2 of Parks and Recreation's 3-year plan to gradually increase facility fees with a goal of 50% increase over 3 years for residents using indoor facilities. Leisure learning instructors using those same facilities, however, experienced a 50% increase in the city's share of class revenue in a single year. The result was a 12.5% reduction in my compensation. For me, that meant that after 19 years of building my classes, increasing participation, I would need to increase my student fees by approximately 15% to break even. That brings me to an important question about the 2027 budget. Page 82, the proposed budget identifies $340,000 leisure class revenue goal. I recently learned that the figure includes both leisure learning classes and parks and recreation camps. That distinction matters. Leisure learning classes are generally offered by individuals, instructors such as myself, while camps are operated by small businesses with multiple employees. Combining the two makes it difficult to evaluate the actual performance difference. I believe the individual instructor compensation structure deserves another look. The city has numerous pay grades for its employees that recognize differences in responsibility, experience, and job performance. The leisure learning program currently has instructor compensation levels based solely on whether it is an indoor or an outdoor class. There is not any consideration for factors such as class size, the number of classes taught, participation growth, or years of service. For 19 years, my incentive was simple. The more people I could successfully bring to my classes, the more revenue both the city and I generated. That was a true partnership. My request is not to eliminate the city's need to generate revenue or maintain financial stability. My request is to recognize leisure learning instructors as revenue-generating community partners and evaluate the program using clear, separate financial participation measures. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ken. Our next speaker is Rose Davis.
Thanks.
Good morning, Mrs. Mayor. I love calling you that, Carol. I'm here to talk about the wild hogs. We have a crazy problem, you know. I live close to these guys in Austin Meadows, and we've had the hogs come attack our yard quite a few times just this year. And I'll just give you numbers since this is a budget meeting. We spent $6,000 on landscaping this year, and that was at the end of February. And then the hogs came and ripped it up something good. So I called our landscaper, and it was another $600 to put the plants back where they were. Then a few nights later, the hogs came back, and they chewed up some of the electrical landscape lighting. Well, shoot. You know, that was a real bummer. So we had to pay some more to get that rewired. And then we went to Park City on vacation, and when we came back, sure enough, in our flower beds were all the, you know, footprints and everything, and I'm going, will this ever end? And then we also like to take walks in the evening after dinner. Well, it's a little scary now. I mean, you know, that's one of our neighbors caught on his Ring camera. Yeah, did you see that video? Caught on the Ring camera like 30 hogs in his front yard, and it was just a little bit after dusk. And that's usually, at dusk is usually when we walk. So we've cut that out too. So we sure would love it if y'all would consider, you know, taking into some sort of budget to trap these guys and, you know, eradicate them. I did some research, I did some calling around, and there's this guy, I forgot the name of his company, but his name is Jeff Glenn, and he traps hogs, and he's done it in Richmond, and he said in 1 week he caught 60 hogs and takes them away, and it's his part-time job, so he's not super expensive, but expensive. It was about $3,000, if I remember correctly, for 3 weeks, and then an additional for every week after that. But in one night, he came back with 60 hogs. So that makes a dent. And these guys keep multiplying. And until we have something that eradicates them, like coyotes, you know, then we're just out of luck. So we would really appreciate if y'all would consider doing that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. Our next speaker is Susan Ridley.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I appreciate you letting me speak this morning. So I have questions about the FIFA thing that we had. It was great. And what I would like to know is how much money, or how much was the sales taxes increase in June and July this summer over last year? I'm just kind of curious as to how much money did the city spend for this FIFA event, and did we make the money back? That's all I'm just kind of curious about. Also, what is the percentage increase in salaries across the board that y'all are planning to do? I noticed somewhere, I think it was on page 80, that said y'all were looking at 2.8% merit pool increase. So I'm just wondering what that number would be. And then also in the CIP, there was no mention of the shelter. And I thought that the animal shelter would have been started this year. And while we're on the topic of the shelter, the current plan does not, from what I understand, does not have a quarantine area that meets the state regulations. It doesn't have proper isolation area. The new kennels and the air filtration systems are needed, and they really could use a surgical suite. I forgot to say, my name is Susan Ridley. I live in Woodstream. I'm also on the board for the First Colony FCCSA board. And we also have concerns about the hogs. So I'm voicing the same concern as everybody else. We would also like for y'all to address the hogs and not make all the residences have to fork out money for them. So again, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Susan. Our next speaker is Augustine, and I can't read your name. How do you pronounce your last name?
Cherokee.
Cherokee. Cherokee. Okay. Thank you, Augustine.
Hi. So I've never
It's one of these. Hi, Mr. Jacobs. So, can I ask a question? Is that okay, or is it just comments?
It's comments.
Okay, all right. So I'm not here about the hogs. I empathize with all of you. I don't have that problem. But my concern, and really why I'm here at the budget meeting, is I haven't had a chance to look at the budget, but I know earlier this year, this council passed a $2.9 million resolution for the flock cameras. I didn't know about this. There was no, to my knowledge, there wasn't a public discourse on this. And I looked online and I put in a request for information. I can't find any information on who voted for it. And so my concern is the lack of transparency, right? Like, these are AI-driven cameras that are monitoring our traffic. They're watching our cars, they're recording our license plates, they're capturing our faces, and AI is all about pattern recognition. So they're using this information to track our movements, to build patterns. And there have been cases where, people have been misidentified for crimes and arrested based on the AI's assumption that they were guilty. There have been cases where police have abused these systems, tracking women that they find attractive. It's crazy that this was done, and there was no discourse. So I would ask, and I haven't seen the contract, but I assume there's a cancellation clause. And I would ask that we amend whatever the budget is for this year for the flock cameras to cancel the contract and open this up to a public debate. I have my opinion on it. I'm pretty sure you could glean what it is, but I'd rather know what everyone else thinks. I want us all to have a voice in this because it impacts all of us. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Augustine. Our next speaker is Andy Pinto.
Good morning, Council and Mayor. Firstly, my name is Andy Pinto. Probably a lot of folks know me from last year. Talking on the budget. Again, firstly, I think I commend all the employees for doing a fantastic job across the board to keep our city safe, secure, and everything. A few comments on the budget, probably questions for the council to consider. So on page 26 of the budget, we clearly say that our contribution to TMRS is increasing from 15% to 16%. I think it's a 0.5%. But we also comment that it's the highest level. I think probably we need to reconsider that. If there's no legal limit, we need to reconsider that contribution level as to why it's the highest level. The second comment on that same page is that we say our employee compensation is comparable to private sector employees. Now, folks, we are a city government. I work in the private sector as well. So we need to compare apples to apples, and I think that's why I'll make a final comment later on why we need an operational review of the city in terms of how we are functioning, in terms of compensation, in terms of headcount. I think I proposed that last year as well to the council, but probably nothing happened to that, and that's why I'm here again today. On page 55, when you look at the city profile, there's a decline, of course, in the population, and there's a decline in some of the services in terms of calls and calls for service and things like that. So I'm not sure if the city is looking at those KPIs to see whether, we need to look at it from a budget standpoint as well. The last couple of comments on page 81, in the general fund which we're talking about today, we seem to have an excess of 14 million, 14.2 versus your FY26 projections. Now, this is in excess of the minimum limit of 25% of operational expenses. I don't know if that is a ratio mandated by legal or is city policy. Again, I don't know if it's comparable to other cities as well. So I think that 14 million can help resolve the $3,000 feral hog problem that we have. Now, that's an excess, so I don't know why we cannot consider that excess to offset any proposed tax increase, which I don't know if that's the proposal, because I think that's the proposal today. But we seem to have a lot of excess funds in different categories, but I don't think we are considering those.
25 seconds.
Sorry?
25 seconds left.
Yes, thank you. So I don't think we're considering that as well. And then I think a very concerning fact on page 70 of the budget document, our debt is increasing per person. It increased from $2,017 per person to today, what is presented in the budget, it's $2,844. That is a 38% increase over 2 years. So that is concerning. But
Your time is up.
thank you for your time, and I think that's what I want to bring to the attention.
Thank you, Andy. Our next speaker is Sarah, is it Jeffrey? Jeffrey, okay.
Good morning. My name is Sarah Guffey, and I too live in the Austin Meadow, a subdivision of Sugar Land, and I'm here to talk about the feral hogs. But one of the things I wanted to say is that I contacted the city of Sugar Land and was responded by a liaison who said it was essentially the HOA's responsibility to manage this feral hog situation. Well, years ago, about 10 years ago, we had the same problem in Austin Meadow, and they tore up our lawn back then. And the city of Sugar Land responded with a trapping program, and it was effective because we hadn't had another problem. So last year we eliminated, I understand, the feral hog containment program, and lo and behold, they're back. And my point is, if the HOA's responsibility is to take care of this, and they're just gonna move on to another neighborhood. On Nextdoor app, there was a person in the last 5 days, William Lynch, who lives in Shadow Glen at Riverstone, who reported that he was running at 5 a.m. and encountered 40 to 50 hogs in various sizes moving south along the North Trammell Park Lane towards Steep Bank Creek in Riverstone. These hogs are big and they're ugly and they're dangerous and they bring nasty diseases. They can carry animal diseases such as African swine fever, of which there is no known treatment or vaccine. They come into our yards seeking food and they bring with them their feces and their fluids. This is where my grandchildren play, at our neighborhood parks. This is in our yards. We should absolutely be concerned about it, and it should not be the responsibility of any individual HOA. And this particular person that responded to my concerns gave me the name of a trapper, and Tom called him, and it was gonna be $3,600 or something in that neighborhood that we as individual citizens were gonna have to take care of. They gave me the name of a game warden, and I called Mr. Mitchell. He said he serves through the law enforcement side of this issue, and he wouldn't be able to help us. He said that this is happening within the city of Sugar Land, and the city should take ownership of this problem. And he agreed with me. It appears the city is trying to pass the buck. And they also gave me the name of the Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Office, which I called and no one has ever called me back. And I called the First Colony Community Association, of the HOA of which we're members, and they are talking about helping us with a fence, but the issue is that they're going to use up all our community, our neighborhood resources to take care of this fence, and who knows if that's going to help. So I ask you to consider funding this control plan.
Thank you, Sarah. Linda, does anyone else fill out a request to speak?
No, Mayor, I'm not.
Is there anyone who would like to speak who has not filled out a request? Ron?
Yeah, hi. I'm also live in the Commonwealth, and I also have hog issues. Our levy district, I'm president of the levy district in the Commonwealth area. We've spent over $90,000 putting up fences to keep the hogs out. I can't put a fence up on Commonwealth Boulevard, and at least nobody's gonna let me do that, I don't believe. Anyway, the hogs are coming in. They're causing a lot of damage. We put a lot of money out to pay for that. We've brought trappers in and had them set up, and we did capture 30 one time and 40 another time. And we're about to have the trapper go out again. We're limited in where we can put the traps. We don't have areas that are appropriate. We can't put it in the middle of the boulevard. So we have to go into the wooded areas to do that, and we're limited. And the other problem we have that was brought up earlier is we don't know exactly where they're coming from. Some sort of mechanism from the city to help us figure out where they're at and where they're going would help locate those traps. The other thing is there are areas around us that are very appropriate to set up traps. The Kinder Morgan place that the city was able to contract with and put the trap out there was a big help. There are other areas up at the parks and whatever that can be done that we can't get to. I don't own that property. We have a large amount of drainage easements, which are basically our landscaped areas, and the hogs are going in there. I just replaced about $25,000 worth of fence. They knocked it over. They tore up the 4x4 posts and came in and destroyed areas on Burberry and the Alcorn Bayou area. Okay, that fence is put up. We did go back with steel pipe, but fence is costing us a fortune, and we are spraying 2 miles of levee with fipronil, a grub insecticide to keep the hogs off, and that's doing pretty good, but it's not keeping them out. So we need some coordination with the city. They need to help us at least coordinate it and help us hire these trappers to come out and do it. Yes, they are expensive. I probably spent $20,000 on trappers the last few years. But for 2 years, we didn't have hogs. Now they're back, and they're back with a vengeance, okay? That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. And if you can get with the city secretary and fill out a form. Okay, and does anyone else like to speak? Okay, well, so anyway, just something about public comment. Public comment is public comment, not council comment. So anyway, but when we get to those particular topics during the course of the workshop, city council members will likely, comment or ask questions during that time. So, but anyway, again, y'all get extra points, gold stars for being here so early this morning. And so I would like to now close public comment.
Thank you.
Item 4A, 2027 fiscal year budget workshop. Review of and discussion on the proposed fiscal year 2027 budget and capital improvement program 2027 to 2031, inclusive of all funds and forecasts. We have Shalay Stegman, Director of Budget, and thank you to you and your team for all of the hours of work that you put into this.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor, Council. I'm very excited to be here. And today we are going to talk about the general fund, our employee benefits fund, and our other internal service funds. And as you'll see through this presentation, the budget is focused on maintaining the high level of services our residents expect while remaining fiscally responsible. Here we go. But before we get started in the budget, I did want to introduce my budget team. They're sitting right here beside me. This group works year-round with departments to develop the budget, manage our financial performance, and support city financial planning. They also are here to help answer questions. And as we go through the presentation, they'll be taking notes on any questions of follow-up items so that we can make sure everything is addressed. I also want to recognize that this team just represents a very small portion of the effort. Developing the budget is truly a citywide process, and it wouldn't be possible without the work of all of our departments. So, as the mayor mentioned earlier, we do encourage asking questions as we go forward. I'll just look to the mayor to recognize council members along the way. If we do not have an answer, we will make note of it and respond to all council members, so you all will have that information. For the agenda today, like I mentioned, we'll have a general fund overview. Then we will hear from some of our departments that are supported by our general fund. We'll take a look at our employee benefits fund and our other internal service funds. And then before we get started, I did want to highlight the full compass of the city's budget. It includes 26 operating funds along with our capital project funds. And we can't simply move from one fund to another. Most of our funds are restricted in one way or another. So the revenues have to be used for the purpose they were designed and collected for. The general fund is our exception and is the focus of today's workshop because it provides the greatest flexibility and funds many of our city's core services. Next week, we will be talking about our capital improvement and debt service along with property tax. And then week 3, we'll be finishing off with our enterprise funds, special revenue funds, and our component units 4A and 4B.
Hi, Councilor Bondahar.
Quick, easy question, just I want to clarify so that everybody else, is it fair to say that all these various different funds we have out there, for the most part, they're statutory? We have to do it the way it's set up. We don't do this because it allows us to move money around like the shell game. These are mandated by state statute that we do this.
Yes.
Okay.
State statute or federal statute or required in other ways. And like I mentioned, today is about our general fund. This is the city's primary operating fund. The fund supports the city's day-to-day operations, including public safety, public works, and parks. About 74% of the general fund is invested in our employees because they're the people that keep the city running. Ultimately, this budget is maintaining that quality of life residents expect, which is highlighted in my next slide. Our latest Lynn City survey shows that 70% of residents are satisfied with their quality of life here. This is an exceptional result and well above, that's what Zen City said, well above our comparable cities. But this doesn't happen by accident. This has been the investment throughout years, ensuring that we plan financially for the services the residents expect. So jumping into the numbers, looking at how we fund those things. So fiscal year 27 general fund is supported by $146.1 million in projected revenues. As you can see, sales tax and property tax continue to be our two largest revenue sources, accounting for 75% of the general fund revenue. The remaining 25% comes from a mix of licenses and permits, charges for services, interest income, transfers, and other small revenue sources that help support city services.
Councilor Single?
I have a suggestion to make. So obviously the most of money will come from property and sales tax. Could we also look at augmenting this by some innovative way? For example, we have lots of parks, etc. Could we look at corporate sponsorship or kind of individual sponsorship for naming rights and other thing to add to our revenue stream? That would be something good to look as a future, because obviously there's a limit to what the sales tax and property tax will continue to be increased. We don't want to increase property tax too much unless we have to. So looking into those opportunities would also be a good idea. You can make a note of that.
Councilor Watling?
I don't think that's a bad idea. We've had that come up, especially at Imperial Park. But I think that's a great retreat question, not a budget question.
So,
Can we bring it up at retreat?
Follow up?
yeah. And I understand maybe for this year it's already too late, but I think we need to come out with a guideline, what we can rename, what we can't rename, and also a kind of rate list of what is the expected money. That would be good to add to the next year revenue.
And we are looking at naming rights on the animals.
Animal shelter and other things also.
Yeah, that we'll be breaking ground on later this year, yes. Okay, anyone else? Okay, go ahead.
And just highlighting that as we continue, all of our revenue assumptions uses a conservative approach based on current trends and our best information available at the time. So I know council's familiar with this slide, but I do like to highlight it because it's a good reminder that shopping local really matters. We want to keep that 2% at the city of Sugar Land. And if you haven't seen, there is a new video out there from our communication department highlighting why shopping local matters. So just a plug for that.
Councilor Jacobson?
Well, is there any way to know of the sales tax, how much comes from residents and how much comes from outside?
You mean people coming into the city?
Yeah. How much of the sales tax that we collect is actually from residents versus non-residents? Do we know that? Is it possible?
I do not have it based off of address because we collect it from the state and we receive it through whichever organization comes from. We can tell if it's delivered to an address, because if you order from Amazon, you want to make sure it delivers to a Sugar Land address, so we get that sales tax, but that's all I could tell is if it was delivered to a Sugar Land address. And as we discussed in the spring retreat, incorporated in our updated financial management policies, we updated the sales tax forecasting model. While the new model is more robust, it's still conservative. It uses more than just CPI and gives us a more reliable forecast. Simply put, the better forecast helps us make better decisions. So for the fiscal year 27 general fund revenue, tax revenue is budgeted at $62.9 million. And property tax makes up 34% of our general fund revenues, so I did want to mention it while we talk about general fund. However, next week, our workshop is focused on property tax. So we'll have plenty of time to dive into the details and answer questions you may have then. Property tax provides a stable and predictable source of revenue that helps fund many of our core city services. While it's an important revenue source, it doesn't cover all of the costs for those services. In fact, if we put every penny we receive from property tax to public safety, it would only cover 76% of those costs. We recently received the certified tax roll, and you'll notice that our resident values continue to grow very modestly, while our commercial values decline slightly. One thing I do want to point out is the decrease in those TERS values. That is actually good news. It reflects the TERS 1 expiration in December and that value coming back to the city. So that's one of the reasons the net to the city value increased by 1.3%. Like I mentioned, we'll talk more about these next week. We also received the calculated truth in taxation rates with the no new revenue rate, voter approval rate, and those the proposed tax rate. I also want to point out the comparison on the bottom. You can see that's the 2025 tax rate. The green line will show you if no one else changed the tax rate, we will still be one of the lowest tax rates of cities over 100,000. And then jumping to fees, as part of our financial management policies, we review fees each year to make sure that they're keeping pace with the cost of providing services. For fiscal year 27, most proposed fee adjustments are based off the 5-year average CPI, we're also proposing a few new fees where the city is already providing those services but currently doesn't have a fee to accurately reflect it. For example, in fire inspections, we added a fee category for dialysis centers because they didn't fit other inspection categories. So it's just aligning what we're currently doing. Transfers in, this is really our cost allocation. So when our utilities or airport point uses services that are provided by the general fund, they pay for it. So for example, the budget department, HR department, IT, all of these centralized services, this is the way that we allocate those funds so it's not impacting property tax. And then this shows our walk forward from the fiscal year 26 revenues to our fiscal year 27. As you can see, the largest increase is our sales tax and property tax, with smaller changes of the revenue categories. Overall, as I mentioned, the forecast remains conservative.
One question, please.
Councilor Single?
Yeah. Any reason why the intergovernmental grants are reducing at 0.9?
Yes, last year we had the one-time female reimbursement planned in the budget, and so that's what reduced this year is, we're already expecting that in fiscal year 26.
Okay.
All right, jumping to expenditures.
Lauren, you wanna?
Reverend Mitchell?
Yeah, a couple things on the revenues. So for slide 15, you wanna walk us through the NNR, no new revenue rate, voter approval rate? How much did we save from previous years when we didn't increase the max 3.5? And then, you wanna just walk us through that whole process just for the public's familiarity?
I would prefer if we can save all the property taxes questions to next week, because that's when we'll have all of these slides out and be able to better show you.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out when the good time was. Thank you.
Jumping here, I do want to highlight what's driving our expenditures this year. Like many organizations, we continue to see higher costs in our personnel, healthcare, insurance, utilities, and other operating costs, which we'll show in here. This slide really tells our story of the fiscal year 27 budget. Most of the increases from fiscal year 26 to 27 isn't about new programs. It's about the rising cost of providing the services we already deliver. So as you can see on the left is the fiscal year 26 budget. And that orange drawdown is, we took out the one times from last year. So the majority of that is the Lake Point incentive. And then each of the blue shows the increases of those categories. So I'm gonna walk through all of those in the next few slides, but it includes our TMRS increase, overtime specifically with public safety, health insurance has increased, our electricity bills, base adjustments, which is all of the contracts for the things we currently provide have gone up. The MUD tax rebates, because if we increase property tax, we increase that piece as well. And our contributions have also increased. And we'll talk through all of those things. But I do want to highlight, before recommending any new funding, we did look at efficiencies across our organization and made reductions where we could. So that's where you see those orange lines going back down. So we recognized O&M by $1 million. We reduced O&M cost by $1 million. Reduced 5 positions in the budget for about $700,000, and then also found other areas that we could fund, like park events, and I'll walk through those as well, another $700,000. And so the few things we did add into this budget was a modest increase for merit of 2.8%, just meeting our CPI, and continuing the STEP program, along with a few minor additions for efficiency for the city.
I have it.
Councilor Singh?
So I think I want to just go back to the previous slide. So, I will keep my comment to the overall picture, and I believe you will go to each of these individual pieces separately, and I'll comment. But overall picture is, I believe, I fully support that inflation-related adjustment have to be done to salary and other, but inflation is like 2.8% or 3%. So any increase in the government expenditure in line with inflation is explainable. But here, if you take the one-time expense of Lake Point, which was 2.65 actually, not 2.4.
There was a few other things
So,
in there.
yeah, so it goes from 137.7 to 146, which is over 6% increase. And my problem is, if we are increasing the government funding over the inflation, that's a problem, and that's something we can't catch up unless we keep increasing the property tax. So I really expect the council and the staff to look at ways that by which we can manage our increase in expenditure in line with inflation, which is between 3 to 3.5% total. Now, some of those, and I think I will explain, seems to be buffer for future. Like, you have put some of those which are not required for next year, but possibly kept it because just in case in future we can't increase the tax increase. And I think that we should agree as a team, we should not do that. We should have it only absolute minimum, and if you want, I can give an example here, what is built for future, like fleet fund is one of them, which we will talk about. We are putting additional money aside which is not needed next year. We are contributing over 1.2 million than the planned expenditure just to build up a fund, and that fund is already above the minimum balance. So that is something we should not do. So as we go through each of this, if we find out there is some excess, we should be willing to reduce it. That's my request. I don't know if other council members agree with it, or I would like to hear from them.
Mayor, just one comment. Appreciate the thought. It's a great idea. I think we need to let them go through the process and address those as they come up.
Yeah. So, what I will request is once we go through individual pieces, if we can come back to this slide to see that if we suggest or any changes to this individual pieces.
So jumping into that first bucket we talked about is our TMRS. It increased from 15.57% to 16.13%. And that is, much of that increase, I lost my notes, but as you can tell, this is driven by the 2025 market compensation. So we have a delay of when we increase salaries. It's about a year delay of when you'll see that increase in our TMRS contributions. We also talked about how overtime has been increasing for our public safety. The overtime growth we were talking about is 90%. And that is something that we are currently filling right now. That is to provide for the services and make sure that specifically fire with their mandated overtime, that we can fill all of those positions. And so a lot of these things are things we were filling in 26 budget, not just we're projecting in the 27 budget. We also will hear from employee and benefits compensation. Our health insurance has been growing, so this includes a 7% increase for health insurance. And also includes some career ladder and certification pay connected with our public safety again, to ensure that we can keep all of those promises made when we hired those employees.
I have a comment.
Councilor Single?
So this one I would like to speak because I'm in the compensation committee, so I have really been into the details of this. So if my understanding is correct, we were paying 15.57% of the payroll cost in the past, which will go up to 16.13, which is 0.56% increase in the cost to the city. Now our payroll overall is roughly 70 to 75 million. So if you multiply 70 to 75, even if you take 80, 0.5% of this is only $400,000. If you take the extreme case, it could be $500,000. And that is what we discussed in the compensation committee. The additional cost of TMRS would be $500,000. So I was surprised in the previous slide is 2 million mentioned for TMRS.
We have been under budgeting for TMRS in the past years. So we are feeling that impact right now. And in the past, we used salary savings to help cover the TMRS increases. However, with the reduction of the vacant positions, we reduced over 30 in the past 2 years. We no longer can cover that with vacancies.
No, but when the mandated increase in the calculated contribution of TMRS is only $400,000, we discussed this in the compensation committee, to budget $2 million in 1 year, to me is outrageous if you are calculating or catching up for the last few years. I did ask that question, that do we need to cover for the past? And I think our fund is funded 91%. And I was told that as long as it's above 90%, that is good. Councilmember Watley was in the meeting when we had the discussion. So if we are above 90% funded, there is no reason to fund more than what is the minimum required for the TMRS rate impact. And if you calculate, and I'm willing to sit down with you to see, the impact of the TMRS is not more than $500,000. So if we are funding 1 or 2 million, that means, yes, money is there for future, but do we really need to put money aside for future? I will doubt it, especially if we are increasing the tax by more than inflation. And again, I don't know what the other council member feel on that, but to me, we should be increasing what is required now versus what could be coming up in future.
Councilmember Watley, yes.
Thank you, Sanjay. We did discuss that, to be fair, but are we going to hear from compensation shortly?
Yes.
Okay, can we save that for that
Yeah, I think that would
conversation?
be good
Because
policy,
that's a
yeah.
fair question, but we did discuss that. So I would like to hear that more in detail. I think there's a reason for it, but.
Kind of a process question here. So at this point, are we just going over a very, very high level and we're going to get into nitty-gritty details later, just for the flow of this meeting?
Yeah, we're gonna get into the departments after break.
It appears this is an overview. Sorry.
That's what I'm trying to clarify.
This is an overview, and as the departments come up, we'll get into more detail.
Yeah, no, the reason actually I am raising these points because I saw the slide deck fully. They don't come back again as a overall picture. Like TMRS doesn't come up in the department. It comes as salary and benefits cost as one line item. So while we can see individual fire, police, what's increasing from last year to this year, this increase is built up into all of them, and it's not noticeable when you go through individual department. While at a top level, 1.5 million is very noticeable here. That's why I brought it up. But only on the key point, I'll bring it up now to build the case for whether we should relook at what we have budgeted or not.
Yeah, Paul will be here later.
I will, to answer Councilmember Betcher's question, the detail is in your budget book. So this is more to go over the topics and the big changes we're covering. So this is, like Councilmember Watley mentioned, we will be talking about the Employee Benefits Fund, but this is where we're talking about all of these big changes in the category.
Right, feedback.
Councilmember.
One thing I'd like to see, I mean, even if it's just the high level part of it, put the numbers of the delta that it changed, like if this is $2 million, put it somewhere on this slide. You know, it went from 15.57 to 16.13 is nice, but impact to whether it's the reserve fund for it or just the total strategy, I think that should be embedded in this high level topic as well.
Well, he's referring to this.
Right.
So this slide is the changes of all of those different categories. But we can make a note for future years.
Anything else?
We're also seeing increase in costs in our insurance and electricity costs. Our insurance premiums continue to rise due to the conditions in the broader insurance market, which is affecting cities across Texas. And when we talk about electricity, this isn't just like lighting up our buildings and plugging things in the buildings. A large portion of these expenses come from the street lights on our roadways. So as much as I would like to turn those off at night, we can't. So, we, however, are looking at ways to reduce those costs. You'll see in week 3, the 4A budget includes funding to convert some of our street lights on the major roadways to LED, which should help reduce energy consumption.
So again, I would highlight the main point here. So electricity is increasing 6.8%, $300,000 increase here. Water is our own water, and we know we are increasing by 3%. So bill will increase by 3% unless the usage is also increasing. So overall, and that's if you multiply with the water bill comes to 200 or 300,000. So when you add electricity and water together, it's 0.6 million at the most. 300 for electricity, 300 for water. While in the previous slide, you have budgeted 1.5 million for electricity, water.
So this is our projected numbers in 26, not what we budgeted.
No, but you have proposed 27.
But the 26 is our projected. So what we're showing is this is the increase we're seeing this year. So if you actually look at our budgeted dollars, they are flat because we have consistently budgeted these areas flat, whereas last year we saw a huge growth, and we're continuing to see that growth this year.
So yeah, one thing I would request, then possibly it would help if, like we discussed before the budget, that if you compare with what we approved budget to what we are approving now, so we know year on year, because the projected number has multiple issues in it. Some of it was carryover, some of it was increase in between. So if we see what is budgeted or last year versus this, then we can have same like for like comparison.
Yeah, it's the 1.5 million that I showed on that first slide that's increased because of a majority of that is electricity and
And the same apply to insurance?
Follow-up.
Oh, sorry.
Follow-up.
Follow-up, yeah. Does same apply to insurance? Because here it seems to show only 0.1 million, while in the previous slide, the insurance increase is 0.6 million.
Yes, because look at that jump in the projected of fiscal year 26. This last year, we had huge increases in our TML insurance.
Follow-up.
Follow-up, yeah. So what was budgeted last year for insurance?
Can you hold that? I'm gonna.
Yeah, we can come back.
Okay, all right, we can come back.
Councilmember Watley?
Just for my clarification, because Sanjay, you keep referring to these funds being allocated somewhere else if they're overages. Are these funds, what we're talking about, going into the general, are these general funds going into the fund balance? Where are they going? Where are we referring to them going to if they're overages? I don't see them going into the fund balance. This does, I mean, this is not what our fund balance consists of if we're overages, and I don't ever see us doing that.
Yes. I can comment?
Oh, wait, Shelley, you want to respond to Councilmember Watley?
So like I talked about in TMRS, we had high increases in the past year. We were able to do that with salary savings. And then when we talked about in spring retreat that we are seeing these high projected electricity costs, those are built into our projections. So we are increasing the fiscal year 26 budget. You saw in those projections for those electricity costs this year.
But for my clarity, they're not going into some allocated fund balance and just sitting there not being used, correct?
No.
Okay, so they're not just not being used if they're projected. If they're projected, they're being used and allocated to the place where they were supposed to go. They're not just sitting around.
Yeah, comment?
Yeah, I was just waiting to make sure she was finished. Councilmember Single?
So basically, what you said is true for some, like electricity, is not true for other, because some others, like fleet, for example, is getting transferred from general fund to fleet fund. And when it goes to fleet fund, the excess can stay there for another year or a couple of years. So today, for example, in the fleet, and I have the example here from the budget book, you have the revenue coming in 3.6 million, you have expenditure only 2.2 million, so 1.2 million is excess you are contributing to fleet fund, which could stay in the fleet fund for a rainy day or for future. So if we decide to contribute only 1.7 million in this year budget from general fund instead of 2.7, what you will have in the fleet fund, you will break even. Ideally, what we discussed in our previous sessions is as long as in each of the fund we are breaking even for current year, like we say for general fund, that should be good enough. We shouldn't be really building up the fund balance. In some cases, we are actually depleting the fund balance like we decided in SL4B and SLDC because we had in the past much build up. But for remaining, as long as we have above the minimum required, we shouldn't be building that fund. That was the point. And what you said is true for some, for electricity and all, they are paying for the cost. But for some other, they are going into fund, which you can transfer money now, keep it there for the years when you can't transfer much more. And that is what my issue is for this year. I expect us to contribute only what is required for 27, not a penny more.
Can we hear what Shalai has to say?
Okay, the only ones that we're transferring into other funds is for our replacement funds, and I'm gonna talk about that in a second.
Okay. Yes, so we will go through those, but the concept that we have, this has been a very difficult year for our departments. They're not happy, right? They've lost significant funding that serves the public. So the concept that we would do that and then just put it away is just not true. It's just not true. That is not the case, and so we'll get into those as we get into those funds. But that concept that, yeah, let's strip away as much as we can and just hide it somewhere else, just not true.
The next piece I wanted to walk through is our base adjustments. Like I mentioned, these are for things, they're not for new programs or new services, they're reoccurring adjustments needed to continue to provide the services we already deliver. These include things like software maintenance, equipment maintenance, contract increases, and other operating costs. An example of this is with our Fort Bend CAD. They do our appraisals. They increase their rate to the city. It's something we cannot control, but it was a significant increase that we have to fund and pay for. Okay, this is where Councilmember Singal is talking about. It's our transfer to other funds. The majority is to our fleet and high-tech replacement funds, which allows us to set funding aside each year to replace vehicles and technology on a planned schedule rather than facing huge one-time costs. The other transfers I'll walk through very quickly. We do have a transfer to the airport fund. That is because we are a federally obligated airport. As part of the FAA requirements, we then have to put any revenue received from the airport back to the airport. So any property tax received from those businesses on the airport, we have to transfer back to the airport.
Councilmember Jacobson.
So, Shalai, are you saying that what we're doing is we're creating sinking funds so that we have the funds available for these large purchases, one-time purchases? Otherwise, we would have to come up with a chunk of money. So, and we're doing this instead of, for instance, incurring debt to purchase these?
Yes. Okay. Yes. And I will talk, I have an example in my next slide. I did want to just cover before I jumped is we do transfer to our PIDs, that's with the property tax in accordance with the agreements we have there. And then there is a very minor transfer due to our public arts, and that is for maintenance of those art exhibits, which is required to do general funding, not any other source of funding.
Do you have a comment?
No, I would just say in addition to a debt, it's also not a pay-as-you-go situation where every year you have these huge spikes, so it's a better way to manage those expenditures.
Yeah, fire trucks and all, they get pretty expensive these days.
Police cars, everything.
Yeah.
And this is the example right here of how this works.
Councilmember Singal.
I had a comment on the previous slide, a question basically. On the PID for the public district, which is I think Eldridge or other in and others, shouldn't this be increasing by the rate of property tax increase? Because that's essentially the property tax we collect from those areas.
So both of them have specific contracts. So Enclave has 50% that we transfer over, and then Park of Eldridge is 50% up to 52,000.
So my point was percentage increase, because whether you 50% of property tax or 100% of property tax, it should be the year-on-year increase should be in line with the property tax increase.
For the properties in that area.
That's right. So which, when I compare last year to this year, is growing like more than 10%, while the property overall is 1%, maybe in that area rate increased by more than 1%.
So the properties in those areas are usually new properties and they're building them out. So you will see growth in the values in that area over the time.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, so we had a lot of talk about why we do replacement funds. This is an example right here. So on the left is our fleet replacement fund. Those blue bars you can see is the fund balance. So from fiscal year 21 going forward, we continually to draw down our fund balance in that fund. That's because equipment and vehicles skyrocketed, to be no better word for it. And so when I started, we had about 20,000 in that fund. You can't purchase a vehicle at all with that. And the goal of this, like Mr. Goodrum said, is to allow us to be able to purchase the vehicles when we need them and not have to do high one-time expenses. So last year we made the deliberate decision to replace less vehicles and to increase that fund balance so that we have that capacity in the future. And our financial management policy actually states that we should have 10% of our fleet in that fund at any time. So we were below policy last year, and we are still below it, and we're trying to make up for it this year to ensure that we have that funding available for when we need it. So this year, we are increasing that fund balance again, but it is to make sure that we have a level payments throughout the years. So example of how we walk through this is right here. So we have this police vehicle. It's a patrol unit. We determined the replacement cost. It's $87,000. And if you think that's really high, I do too. But it includes the cost of the vehicle, the cost to put the cage in, the light barbs, all of those modifications, and the work to make it happen. So we take that and we take the useful life of that vehicle, which is 6 years, divide it up, and that should say, and that's why we contribute about $14,500 per year for that vehicle, so that when it comes ready for replacement, we have that funding available.
Councilor Jacobson.
And you're not even factoring in the idea that it'll be $100,000 in 5 years. So we're actually being conservative when we're adding to this fund.
We do have a slight inflation in there, but it won't, it's not what we've seen in the vehicle prices increases this year, in the last few years.
Councilor Gunter.
So I see your expenditures float, obviously, when you're purchasing vehicles. What's your, I mean, they have this projected life and a cost. What is our expected yearly depreciation on these assets? And then how much are we putting in? Like, obviously, we should be growing each year, but what's the delta? Do you have those numbers?
So depreciation, that is specifically finance, because we focus on what cash we have available to purchase these vehicles on the budget side. But this is what we would need to contribute each year for this vehicle, but we have it per vehicle. So did I answer that question?
I guess what I'm asking is, we have, you depreciate, or you're using up that useful life. How much are we burning up every year? Because obviously we want that number to make sure that this one is appropriate. So if we can get that number, that'd be useful. Yes.
And what we also do is really look at each vehicle before we replace it. So when we talk about the fleet model, we recognize 7 vehicles now, but we know they might come 6 months from when we actually budget for them. And so at that point, we review all of the vehicles and we make sure we're replacing the ones that need to be replaced first. So I've done a lot of research on this, and sometimes you get lemons. And so we want to make sure that we have the best reliable fleet, especially when we're talking about public safety. And so it's not just we replace the vehicle that we have listed right now, but we do an evaluation every time we look at when those vehicles come in and where the best places for it.
Councilor Single.
One question, what is, as per the policy, as you said, 10% of the total vehicle value is our policy. Is it true that our policy required the minimum fund balance to be 1.8 million?
I would need to go look at what the total cost of our fleet is at the moment.
I think in the budget book it's mentioned. It's 1.8 is the, oh sorry, follow. Yeah, in the budget book it's mentioned that the minimum required for fleet fund is 1.8 million, which we were not in the last 2 years, but which we are achieving by end of the year. Even if we do 100 or 200,000 more than what is minimum required, we would be okay. To answer Councilman Butcher's question, 2 million is what is planned as an expense in the fleet fund next year. So what I'm saying is there's no reason to contribute 3.6 million into the fleet year in 27 when the expenditure is only 2 million, because we are building up 1.4 million as an additional buffer while we are already at what is minimum required by the policy.
Yeah, the concept of the 1.8 and we're okay, I believe is false. And so I think it would be best is we can get y'all a 1-pager or 2-pager just illustrating the fund. You know, when you look at 24 and 25, you've got deferral of purchases, and so we'll get you the 1-pager, but the concept that that's true, I do not agree with. Thank you.
And, yeah, we can focus on that. All right. Between fiscal year 26 and 27, we did identify 7.5 million in efficiencies. These are dollars we took out of the budget. And this included eliminating 30 positions. They weren't easy decisions, but they demonstrated our commitment to continually looking for ways to operate more efficiently and be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. At the same time, there is a limit of what efficiencies we can accomplish without impacting the services we provide. So looking at specifically fiscal year 27 budget, it highlights that we found 1.73 million in recurring reductions, including in the fiscal year proposed budget. We looked across the organization. Some of the larger reductions include eliminating vacant positions in the assistant city manager's office, people and culture, engineering, municipal court, and dispatch. We also reduced paramedic training program, which the fire chief will talk about, and reduced maintenance, landscaping, custodial, and other operating contracts. While we are working to minimize the impacts of these on services, these reductions will be felt across the organization. The departments presenting today will highlight some of the significant reductions in their budget.
Mike?
And just, you know, it looks really easy on a PowerPoint to say 5 positions removed or 30 over, 2 years. But that work has to be done, and so it's not just that easy. The rest of the employees are assuming that work, in most cases, without any additional pay. So I just want to, like, when we're doing these things, it comes at a cost, and I want to thank our employees because they're the ones that are doing it and stepping up so that we can accomplish this. Thank you.
Councilor Single?
Yeah, no, so I would like to also acknowledge the effort of the employees in achieving that, because that's a key to improve our operational efficiency and other thing year after year. So I thank everybody involved, not only the budget department, but all the other departments also.
We also looked across all of our different funds and looked at ways that we could use the funding in different capacities. But as Councilmember Vonderhaar said, most of them are restricted, but we did recognize that we could use some of our special events funding to fund our parks events, so that created more capacity in our general fund. And also we created a new fund. It's our grant and deployment fund. And when our fire or Office of Emergency Management or Public Works teams deploy to help other communities after disasters, we do receive reimbursements for those costs. However, there is a delay. And so by putting it in its own fund, we can better track those costs and specifically the overtime associated with those. So it isn't impacting our general fund. I just want to highlight these changes don't increase spending, they simply improve how we account for those activities. Up to this point, we've talked about cost of maintaining our current services. The request on this slide highlights a few targeted investments included in the fiscal year 27 budget. They're focused on improving operations, addressing compliance and risk, and helping departments work more efficiently. They're not major program expansions, and they're prioritized because they support our existing services and, like I said, help us operate more effectively. So you can see the big one is our centralized data repository, or I like to think of it as a data warehouse. It allows us to bring all of our data together to help us in better reporting and getting that information out, which really helps make better decisions. The software will help our dispatch center, and then the PDF remediation tool, that one is so that we can meet federal requirements. to make everything ADA compliant. And lastly, our risk management consulting services allows us to delve deeper into exploring how we're doing and potentially could save us money as we continue forward with that. And as part of the budget process, departments submitted more requests than we could fund. So the additional request submitted was $18.1 million. This list includes a mix of critical operation needs and strategic investments that would improve how we deliver services. Given our available resources, we focus first on maintaining current service levels and balancing the budget. Several of the unfunded requests are for public safety, including staffing, equipment, and training. Two notable items are replacement of police and fire radios, which we anticipate budgeting for next year, and also the fire department's SCBA equipment, which is their breathing apparatus, which we are pursuing grant opportunities for. The list also includes strategic investments such as replacing the city's ERP system. A modern ERP would improve financial reporting, streamline business processes, and build better support decision-making across the organization.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
So the ERP is our enterprise resource, just on the planning, which is all of our financial systems, if you can think. So while we did push that off, our current system will eventually require, and soon, it will require us to move to the cloud, which will require a full implementation anyway. So that will be coming soon. And I wanted to highlight these requests because they show that we're being strategic with our funding. We aren't saying these requests aren't important. We're prioritizing what we can fund today and keeping the needs in front of us so we can plan for future budgets.
Yeah, sorry. While all of these, as you just alluded to, are important and we want to hear more about them, because public safety is our #1 priority in the city, are we going to hear more about what these requests entail from public safety? I would like more detail on them, just to make sure we are checking all the boxes for our #1 priority.
We can send you a list of all of those requests.
Are we going to hear in the presentation what those might be?
I think they'll send them to us.
I don't think we highlight them specifically because they weren't included in the FY27 budget.
Would you share them with council, please? Because we don't want to miss anything for our #1 priority.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. No problem. Thank you.
Question related to Suzanne's comment. So for all the public safety equipment, they operate their own kind of sinking fund internally within their own budgets, correct? To replace their equipment as it comes up, needing replacement?
No. So right now, the high-tech replacement fund also includes some things for the police department. We'll talk about that when we talk about the high-tech replacement. But also this year, we are creating a new fund specifically to build a replacement, to start building for all of those big replacements.
Okay, thank you.
The fiscal year 27 proposed budget includes a modest 2.8% merit increase, which reflects the CPI of April, just for this area, and continues the STEP program for our public safety employees. We are not proposing to move the city's pay structure this year. We are, however, recommending adjustments to the part-time pay. These are just slight adjustments, which Parks will cover in more detail. It just aligns their pay with our full-time pay. They just weren't included in the 2025 market increase. Most of our workforce is dedicated to providing direct services from public safety to infrastructure planning and community development. So investing in our employees is really an investment in services we provide our residents, which is also shown on this next slide. This just shows our operating funds and how they are divided. So as you can see, a significant portion of our budget supports public safety, reflecting the city's commitment to protecting our residents. The remainder funds essential services like public works, parks, community development, and the internal services functions that keep the organization operating. The breakdown reinforces that the vast majority of our budget is investing and is vested in delivering the core services. With that, I have the summary of our fiscal year 27 budget for the general fund. There were a few adjustments from when we filed to when today. Though the main one is a reflection of our property tax changes. That revenue decreased by 600,000, and as such, we reduced the high-tech fund by 400,000 and reduced the mud rebates in reflection of that change. The other minor change is our donation change. We have donations set aside for parks events, and since we moved those to the special events fund, we also are moving this parks donation bucket. So how it works is we budget both the revenues and the expenditures. However, those expenditures can't be spent until we receive those donations. But because we're moving revenues and expenditures, it's a net zero to the general fund.
I've got a comment on our amount that we're over the our minimum fund balance. It'll take me a minute to get there, so it's tied to feral hogs. So, you know, feral hogs are invasive. They rapidly multiply. They're a public nuisance, and they are a public safety threat. And they've caused extensive damage in the city of Sugar Land over the years because they come up from the Brazos River, which runs through our city. And this morning we had board members and residents from Commonwealth, First Colony, and Avalon speak, as well as to LID board members too. And, you know, I said feral hogs are generally out when it's darker, but right now it's hot. You've got heat indexes, you know, over 100 degrees. So there are people who wait till, you know, late at night to walk their dogs or to jog or walk, or they're up really early in the morning, and they could encounter feral hogs. It's been some time ago, but my husband was walking along Ditch H during the day near the river and came around some brush. He came around, he literally came face to face with a feral hog that probably weighed about 400 pounds, and that was, quite a startling experience.
You punched him in the nose and he ran off?
No, that was not what happened. Anyway, but yeah, you know, and they have even torn up, you know, the grounds of Commonwealth Elementary, and I would really hate for a child to be, you know, in the neighborhood to be walking Commonwealth Elementary and in the morning and come across a feral hog. And also, a family in First Colony the other night had to wait for about 3 minutes before they could turn onto Elkins because there was such a large herd of feral hogs crossing the streets. And it's really not feasible for homeowners or HOAs to trap them because they don't really have the right space to do so. And of course, I think we really need to have a regional, at least a multi-entity approach to feral hog control. But until that time, I would really like for the city to provide feral hog control by both, you know, adding fencing along the Brazos where it's possible, well, where we can on our property, where possible, because it's not only affected, you know, those areas there. I mean, it's all throughout the city, on track too. There was some recently, and I don't think it's, I don't want to have the animal shelter out there setting up our own traps and doing that. That's not appropriate. But the LID does hire a contractor to come out and trap them and get them away. And there's several others experienced trappers who can do that. And you know, the city could contract with him or someone else that's comparable. Yeah, and I'm speaking on this next. I don't know what department would be appropriate to be in, but also. I've been working with Fort County to see is there any state grants that we can apply for feral hogs, and there is a feral hog abatement grants through Texas Wildlife Services that are available to Texas counties. Unfortunately, a lot of people when they apply for the grants don't get selected, and even if they do, most of the funding is $5,000 or $10,000 for the entire county. And I asked Texas Wildlife Services, what's the most that you've seen a county get in a single year for a grant? And they said $20,000. But once again, they said the city can't apply for that. And I've asked the county to apply for it, but it's a lot of work, there's a lot of requirements, and at best we probably only get about $5,000 out of that, so we really can't make that. Because unfortunately in the state of Texas, where this is a massive, massive problem, there's only $100,000 annually available through that grant. And maybe that's something the legislative task force could work on, getting the state to increase that. Also, the U.S. Department of Agriculture has $35 million in grant funding to combat feral hogs. This is a program that's been recently announced, and hopefully the grants department here is looking at that. But it is mainly for agricultural lands and in certain counties, and we fall a little bit outside, but that's something that, we can consider because those deadlines are the 21st. But that being said, I would guess I'm saying we can't really hang our hats on getting, grants to fund this. And I said I would like a regional approach, but in the meantime, we have a problem right now. And so that is why I very much appreciate the significant amount of unfunded budget requests that we have, but I also is very concerned about the feral hogs and their rapid multiplication and the threats that they pose to our residents. So that's why I thought, since we are over policy in our general fund balance, that we could set aside, I don't know what the right number is, maybe $100,000 or $200,000, and if we use it, it's there, but if we don't use it, it just stays in our fund balance there. And I would like for the city to bring, 2 or 3 options to council next week at our workshop for all of council just to consider. Councilor Miller?
Mayor, I fully support the mayor in this, and I've talked to the residents, Commonwealth, and others about this. I had a conversation with Mike about this, and I think we kind of came to some agreement that something needs to be done, and you were going to think about some options for us to look at.
I agree with a lot of the speakers that this needs to be handled regionally. It's not just a HOA, it's not a lid, it's not a city, but those things are not guaranteed and they're not easy. We have looked at a number of options. I would always caution with fund balance over policy, it can only be used for a one-time cost. And so what I would recommend, we actually, in our data and innovation area, we have a pilot program where you basically use data, you rigorously test it, you determine whether it's successful or not. And so I would recommend that we use that program. We can come back with the budget funding and test it out for this next fiscal year, not make a recurring commitment because, but I think I would support that.
Okay, great. I think that's important because
if the council,
and because as I said, it would be, I agree with it. Like I said, that was one of my thoughts for you, doing it out of this way as a source of one-time funding, because if we think that there's some fencing that'd be appropriate, that would be, that would be mainly a one-time expenditure there, except if they knock them over and have to be repaired, so that cost would be reduced. And then, I said, it's going to be variable because we don't know when they're going to show up in Riverstone, which is when they're going to show up in the city limits, or when they're going to show up elsewhere. So I think a pilot program with one-time funding would be very appropriate for council to consider, and then after we see the results of the pilot program, then we make a decision next year about where to go forward with that. And I know Commonwealth's been working on that asking the city for this for about 5 years now. So I think that'd be good.
Mayor, just one. I'm sorry.
I think as far as
No,
council.
so I agree, and I'm supportive of that. I think $100,000 or whatever is required in that range would be good to put in the budget. That will solve the problem, will not really impact the budget overall picture so much.
Just for Mike, what I would ask is, there's as obvious from the presentation we made today, there's been a lot of time and effort and work put into this already. Let's don't try to do this in a vacuum. Let's include them and let's work together on this. Make sure, because you guys have a commitment to it already. You've spent a lot of money already. Let's make sure we have a joint effort. To your point, it's a regional problem. It's not a Commonwealth problem. It's not a city problem. So let's make sure we're including folks who've already done a lot of homework.
Well, it's also a U of H problem on our Sugar Land
Again,
campus.
that's my point.
There's a large
Before we come up with our solution, let's include them.
Yeah, and they've also been in Bradshaw Park to plant some wildflower seeds there a couple of years, and there's feral hog damage right there, so they come up from the river, like I said, the river runs through the city. Anybody else have any comments on? Councilmember Watling.
This is not about the hogs. I'm in total agreement with you guys on that. I'm glad you're doing it. I mean, public safety includes hogs.
Yeah, this includes this topic, yeah.
But Mike, I always ask this question every year, and I know you just look at me. But on the general fund, on the fund balance, I always ask you, how much did it take for us to get through COVID. And it just, I look at that and I go, you were so well prepared for that. Spending down that fund balance kills me, not knowing how much money we have in there for how long. So my question is, how much are we prepared for? I mean, spending it down is good, and we agreed to that, because we need to. We need to use our funds responsibly. But we also need to prepare for the next COVID.
Or not that, I mean, if we had a Cat 5 hurricane come, this would be, we would be, unless we borrowed from our utility funds, we would be under policy requirement. And we've had that happen in the past. So I think it is important to have a healthy fund balance, especially as we've adjusted our revenue assumptions and everything else. But it needs to be invested, but invested wisely in one time.
How much did we spend on Winter Storm Uri about? Do you remember?
Not sure. We can get together though. The
Anyway,
cost
it was
of-
a significant, Winter Storm Uri was a significant cost to the city. Councilmember Jacobson?
Thanks. I was saving that for the 5-year forecast, but you were reading my mind.
I know.
Okay.
Mayor and I were the only ones on council when COVID hit, and we were looking at greatly reduced sales tax, we were looking at greatly reduced property values. The city's, the one thing that you could always say about the city's budgeting effort is we always budget very conservatively, and that's gotten us through. We can go, I don't know who in this room was working for the city at 2008 during the global financial crisis when the property values plummeted, but 25% is a minimal. I mean, that's the baseline. I know that it looks like we have extra money that we don't need, but we really do need it.
And is an important factor in our bond rating. And so, you know, that is one thing they call out. And even when we've had negative outlooks, they've said your fund balance has been strong. And so that's a critical point for that too.
So that saves us money.
Saves us money, correct.
Okay, Councilmember Miller?
Yeah, two comments. One is the feral hog issue is a now thing. It's a sooner rather than later, in my opinion. And the second thing that we talked about was having a rainy day fund, which we don't have, I don't think. And it falls into some of the things we've been talking about. You know, the state has a big rainy day fund, specific guidance on how to use it, but I think we need to think about something like that.
That's fund balance. Yeah. Does the state have a fund balance on each of their funds? A minimum fund balance?
It has a balance, and it's very specific how it can be used.
I know, yeah, I think it is important. In a way, each of our fund balance, in a way, each one is its own rainy day fund. So, but I do appreciate the need that make sure we always have our rainy day money.
No, I have the same observation. I think these fund balance are kind of a disaster or rainy day. I am very much supportive of balancing each year's budget and not dipping into it, because this will come into the actual rainy day. It will come into use.
Councilor Jacobson?
Wait, how much R for O do we have in the fiscal year 27?
Contingency, we have 500,000.
Oh, okay, well, that's
It's
not.
very low.
That's not
Much lower.
That's not much.
That's not much at all. We've had, okay, thank you.
Councilor Single?
So if I understand, 500,000 is in the P&L for this year as an and contingency.
In fiscal year 27, yes.
In 27, yeah. Overall, if you say for the contingency, is we have this fund balance for something else to happen.
I also want to highlight that even though we are netting zero, except for 28, where we have that planned radio drawdown, care, fire, and police, our under policy, it goes down each year because our expenditures keep growing. So it naturally is coming down because of that expenditure growth.
One request is this assuming the same rate of property tax, or what rate of growth of property tax is assumed in this?
It assumes the voter approval rate of the 3.5%.
So 3.5% every year, yeah.
Yes.
So maybe it would be good to add a line that what will be the property tax, like it is 3.35 in those years. Another thing which I would like to find out is that the property tax, it assumes 3.5% the valuation growth. That valuation growth may not happen.
Yes.
Looking at what is happening today, the actual valuation growth may be 1% of land.
And I will say that this is a financial plan, It's not exactly what may happen, but it allows us to track that if we plan for these revenues and these expenditures, how we're going to look in the out for. This is one thing that really does set our city apart, that we have a 5-year forecast. I was very surprised when I moved here how many cities around us do not. And so as they're making these decisions year by year, they don't have a plan for the outer years.
Because the words out of my mouth, I was just going to point that out. That's very important that we have that 5-year forecast, and many cities do not have that. Councilor Watley?
Oh, that was a question. I wanted to know the assumptions.
Okay.
No.
Anybody else? Okay, yes, Councilor Betcher.
To Jacobson's question, is there a number or percentage you want to see the fund balance at?
Yes.
Can you tell us what's coming up in the future?
Yeah, let's talk on that.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I mean, 25, I get nervous at 25. I want to know what the ratings agencies, when we borrow money, you take off one of those 3 A's, and that's going to cost us millions of dollars over the years.
Exactly.
And at least we're earning interest on this, and we've got it for COVID, we've got it for the next hurricane, Cat 5, God forbid. So, 30 is probably where I start getting nervous.
Mike?
Well, I think it's a great question, and I do think that at the fall retreat, we could look more at our financial management policy statements of just like, because there are cities that are trying to grow this to even 50%, right? But just what would that be? Also look at the rainy day fund of what would that be, and just kind of make sure that the financial management policy statements are in alignment with the council. So I think it's a great question.
Now, if we had a rainy day fund, would those funds sort of potentially add to our fund balance? So it wouldn't affect our ratings if we have that in a separate rainy day?
A rating agency would look at a rainy day fund as excess fund balance.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you agree with that, Shelley?
And I will highlight that 25% is just 90 days of operating expenditures.
Councilor Vandahar?
That was a point I was gonna make. A lot of folks want the city to budget the way they budget for their own personal expenses. And just as a rule of thumb, and Stuart, you can speak to this, I'm not a finance expert, but as a rule of thumb in my adult life, I've always been told that you need to have a minimum of 6 months of your expenses put aside. And if we genuinely believe that the city should be no different than your personal household, then we have 6 months. And I'm pretty sure our fund balance does not provide for that.
No.
So does that mean we need to go to there tomorrow? No, but there's a reason why we make those decisions. And it's one of many factors that makes Sugar Land one of the best places to live in the country. So.
Councilor Watley?
So the discussion we had earlier, I think it was before this council was all intact, was we had a large fund balance, and we looked at those numbers and said, it's sitting there, it's great, but we could use that money to our benefit more responsibly by investing in other things. So we drew it down at one point because we knew that that money was more useful in other areas. And now we're starting to look at it and say, where is that balance? And that's a discussion we probably need to have again with this council, is where is the balance of how is that money best used? Sure. Invested in things for the city, or held for our benefit for something that might happen, and investing it for financial resources, gaining, interest on it, so.
For sure, it needs to be on the retreat.
Yeah, we'll put that on the retreat agenda so we can further discuss it, yes. Anyone else?
I did a few slides, but this is our 5-year forecast, and as we talked about, we are drawing down the fund balance in 28 for that planned radio expense, and that is an example of one really high expense cost. It's about $3 million for police and fire radios. And then the rest of the year we do net at least 0 or above the 0. So with that, we are to our department segment.
We are going to take a break right now, so we will, for 10 minutes, we will reconvene at 9:20. It'll be a short break since we're running just a little bit longer. So we are now back from recess. And so anyway.
That's how much we should be at a minimum.
Okay, so I'd like to mention, Councilor Jacobson. Yeah. So anyway, okay, we're starting back from recess. The meeting is scheduled to end at 10:30, and so when it gets to 10:30, or if there's a break between segments and it's post 10:30, we will stop the meeting at that time. And if there's a topic that's not been covered yet, we will simply cover that at next Thursday's budget workshop. So anyway, first up is the police department.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Thank you all for having me. So I'm going to do an overview of the department budget and then also some of our highlights over the last year and a half. So in the essence of time, I'm not going to hit on every single one of these. I'll just hit on a couple of them. The FIFA enhanced security planning, we spent a lot of time on that to make sure we had the safety of the residents in mind and also being fiscally responsible at the same time. The TCOL training provider underneath that, that was a huge one. I know we looked for that for several years, just because we had to outsource so much of our training because we couldn't have it here in our own house. Now we have that capability where we have certifications for our own officers who can teach our own current officers plus outside entities as well. And then I want to hit on the real-time crime map, just because one of our citizens brought it up during public comment. That's a real good one that we put out. Shows what our officers are doing every day, but there is a 3-hour delay with it, and that's so we can make sure that the correct information is on there, and also some of the sensitivity of the cases.
Councilor Single?
I just wanted to put a comment that not only for these highlight, for many other things which you and your department do day in, day out, which don't become highlight, but which are very essential for the community.
Yes, sir.
So I wanted to thank and appreciate for that.
Yes, sir.
I really hear very many positive comments from my constituents. So really well done to you and your team.
Yes, sir. I saw you out there too at the event sweating with us.
Thank you.
So I'll go to some of our metrics too. This is also on our webpage. The one on the left, our percentage of priority zero calls under 7 minutes. Priority zero calls are emergency calls of in progress, like robberies, shootings, missing children, etc., where time is really of the essence. So if you look back, we have some valleys in there. So specifically, I'll look at July of 25. So July of 25, you see 33%. So when you look at percentages, you got to see how many numbers are actually factored in there. So in this instance, we only had 3 calls that were an in-progress call. So one, we were there under 7 minutes. The other 2 were barely over 7 minutes. But still, we want to hit that target rate. So every month, when the patrol captain sees these numbers, he says, let's look at this and see what happened. Was it a delay in traffic? Was it a train blocking, etc.? And majority of the time, they're all explainable. The next one over, the number of calls for service. That's just over the last year and a half as well. If you see, we have a steady incline from our low of about 4,900 a year and a half ago to the low of February of this year of 5,100. We do have a peak there for June, and that's going to be FIFA related. That's not meaning that we had more criminal activity during that time. We had overstaffing just in case we had an influx of more people based on what we're projecting from Houston coming in here. So more cops on the street, more traffic stops, etc. So those include traffic stops, crashes, alarms, all that. So we'll go into some of the efficiencies. The first one there on the left, efficient resource deployment. Leverage our technology. Our cameras and drones been a great addition to the department. Save times on our investigations. Even the drones, just examples, assist on searches so much better than go back 21 years ago when I started. We were driving around looking for someone if they were missing. Now we throw up a drone and it picks up heat signatures and it covers a much larger area than what we can. Part of that too is our Faro scanner, and then along with the drones for forensic analysis for incident reconstruction. So if we have a fatality on the highway or any of our streets, In the past, we had a total station with a tripod with a camera and a guy holding another stick on the end, measuring points, which took hours and hours and hours. Well, now we've cut that time almost in half, if not more, just because we'll have the Faro scanner, which maps in 4D, and then the drone goes up too and maps the same way. So we have that redundancy. So just in case something fails, which technology has a history of something's going to fail sometime, we have that redundancy in place so we don't lose that evidence. The second one, investment in officer development, training and leadership. So that one's, if you look at it, how's that an efficiency? Well, better trained officers will de-escalate volatile situations more effectively. They'll recognize appropriately and manage health crises in our mental health community. Make better decisions, provide stronger supervision, and then also it reduces the liability, fewer civil lawsuits and costly settlements, and then lower risk of excessive force claims. The third one overtime optimization. Every year we complete a workload analysis to ensure we get the right amount of shift coverage based on the previous year's calls for service. Historically, our evening shift time is our busiest time just because people getting out of work, people getting out of school, but we don't cookie cutter it every year. So we say, okay, what we do last year, what we have last year, what we had before that, so we can make sure we manage our people appropriately and also manage the overtime appropriately. And when we do that, we have room for things that come up that we don't actually plan for, like go back to Thanksgiving and Christmas time, we had a rash of burglaries in our Sweetwater area. That was an unplanned thing, but we put together a burglary task force, so we were able to fund that and take care of that and help those residents out. The fourth one there, our strategic vacancy management. Currently, we're down 8 positions, but we're planning on holding 6 of those vacant positions for this time period. So we'll go over our financial summary for the past couple of years. You got FY25 actual of 30.7, the FY26 is 31.6, and then our proposed is 33.2 for 27. So that 1.6 million increase you see in there is for personnel costs. It's salary, including overtime and our benefits, and also the bump up in the steps that the officers will be.
So what impact is it to have the delayed recruitment of those positions?
I'm sorry, say
The
again.
impact of the delayed recruitment of those positions, is it?
Well, the impact of it is, it takes about, if it's a brand new rookie, you're looking at about a year or more before that rookie hits the street on their own. So there's the impact, it's just a delay. So in that time frame, if we have people who move on to other agencies or they retire, then we're just down while those people are training. So that's the only issue we run into, just because of the amount of training time that we have to put our officers through.
Thank you.
So,
Councilmember Watley?
Thank you. I have a question. When we're looking at the overtime, is any of that reimbursable? I mean, we talked about overtime, but some of it is reimbursable, correct?
yes, ma'am, yes. I don't know the exact number, but it's several $100,000 that's reimbursable.
Okay, so some of
Those
it.
are from our events, like Smart Financial, et cetera.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Jacobson?
Did you say that you, for the budget purposes, you're keeping 6 positions vacant? And how many vacant positions do we typically run with?
You'll run maybe anywhere from 5 to 8% normally, and it depends on so many different factors. I know about a year or two ago, we were fully staffed for a short time frame, but then we had retirements, we had people go to federal positions, et cetera, then that drops us down, so then we start another recruiting again. And most agencies are around 10 to 12% that they hold all the time with vacancies, and it's just how it is through attrition.
Councilmember Watley?
You know, on that note, Councilmember Jacobson's question, do we see any threat to public safety or any effect to public safety on these the vacancies? Do we need, are these street officers, or do they affect anything that affects the public?
No, I mean, we still have adequate officers for what we have right now. However, if we're holding 6, we gotta look in the future, because we have Abbey Lakes coming on board in a couple of years. We'll have, someone mentioned it earlier, we got MD Anderson, and then we got the area right over here too that's gonna be Yes, thank you. All that's gonna be coming online in a couple of years. So given our time frame of when we hire till somebody hits the street, then we may be behind the curve at some point.
Councilmember Single?
On those empty positions, my suggestion would be not to hold them empty, continue to try to recruit, and if we can't or if the other people leave, it's okay to have 5-6 vacant positions. As you said, up to 10% is normal. But we shouldn't purposely hold them vacant because we don't want to fall short now or in future. And my understanding is that the budget is actually allocated for those positions if they are filled. Is that true? Is the budget already?
Is that for that or?
Yes, so part of what we're talking about is we budget for all of our positions fully. But we do have a bucket for salary savings. And so part of that, this isn't that we're gonna hold the positions forever, it's just for right now to ensure that we can make those salary savings. But then we do have those positions as these new things come online, that they're still available and in part of our planned budget.
Thank you.
Councilmember Venture?
Couple points and questions here. Just want to reiterate that public safety is a very important priority for this council. So obviously the budget reflects that. We've had a couple string of high-profile incidents, whether it was the assault in Lake Point or some of the burglaries which you mentioned. Even in my neighborhood, we had someone get pulled over and then run around with a firearm. I think you guys responded. Sheriffs and a couple other departments responded. And it just illustrates the importance of the training. That way everyone's on the same channel. The importance of the technology, whether it's drone use and everything else. One thing I would like to see is just kind of a review of our technology plan for the police department and public safety. That way we make sure they have the resources they do need, and that we do have the safeguards in place, whether it's flock or anything else. We are using it appropriately. So just want to ask a question on the training side of things, compared to the county and the sheriff's office. Everything is good on our side and good standing, correct?
Correct. Yeah, don't worry about that.
Right. No, great job there. And for the purchase services, do you want to highlight or break that down for us real quick? Just to know what we're dealing with?
That in my notes. See if I can go back. Whoops. Can't go back to that, but. Oh. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Oh, you're using that, I'm sorry. There you go. So the purchase services, you're looking at, software is about 45% of that. That's all of our programs and everything we're running. And then that's investigative software, LPR, camera lease. Then you look at cell phones and air cards as part of it as well.
Any follow-up?
No, I'm just reiterating that we should probably have a deeper conversation in the retreat. Don't need to, consume the time now, but that's about it. Thank you.
Okay, Councilman Rutland.
This may be a follow-up, I'm sorry. I'm still concerned, as Sanjay pointed out, that we are holding off on hiring when we have budgeted for it. I don't know if that affects this budget, Mike, or not, but I really am not terribly comfortable with holding off hiring fire or police, as it's our #1 safety. Public safety is our #1 priority. I would like to have a discussion about that and make sure we're making the right decision, not supporting our #1 priority.
Go ahead, Mike. Oh, you're going to, okay, Miller.
And I totally agree with this. I mean, it takes a long time to train up new recruits. You can't snap your finger and have somebody doing it. So I don't understand why we're doing this.
Councilman Jacobson.
Do I understand correctly, we have those positions open so that we can fill them at some point in the future?
Correct.
But they're not really budgeted because we're using the savings for not filling them in the budget?
Yes.
Okay, so we don't actually have the money in the budget for those
We've got the salary savings for those.
We just have those positions open for when we'll need them in the future.
How many positions are you currently, you have officers in background right now to fill, how many positions are you currently filling right now?
Currently, I'm looking at 2 more right now, because we've got, come this Monday, we have 3 that are going to, or 4 going to the Pearland Academy, and then we have 3 that are starting our officer development program, and they're laterals.
Yes, I follow up.
The reality is, like, this has been an incredibly hard budget for all departments. And when public safety is your number one expense, the thing I commend our public safety for is they are a part of the team. They say, we need to find ways to where we can do things, and they professionally believe they can manage it. If our police chief's at the FBI Academy right now, but our assistant chief here would tell you, if they were concerned about the public safety, this would not ever see the light of day. And so, but we have a phenomenal police and fire department. The work they've done on overtime over the last couple of years, it's so critical that they're doing these things. And so I would just say that there's not a concern that we are gonna have a public safety issue. If we started seeing anything, we'd immediately, open those positions. And so, but I just want to commend, this isn't easy for anybody, and it's not easy for police and fire either, because the job they're having to do to be more efficient over the last couple of years has been different as well.
Right. And so I believe you said that our vacancy rate is lower than most other departments.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, we usually stay around that number. I know several years ago we increased pretty well. That was COVID, and it's the sign of the times too that we dropped pretty low, but we haven't seen that in recent years.
A follow-up?
One last comment. I appreciate that there are team players with every other department. First of all, I know every department has some part of this, but I will say, if we're looking at tax increases, the first place I think our public appreciates us being frugal and making a tax increase is for public safety, because that's where they are affected the most. And if we are missing something in that arena, we want to hear about it to make sure we're addressing it for our constituency, because that is the number one priority for them. So we just want to be aware that we're making those decisions, because I don't mind looking at a tax increase that is so important to our constituency. That's the place. So I appreciate what you're doing, but I want you to be candid and open with us.
Yes, ma'am.
So, thank you.
Absolutely. We had those positions set aside to hold them, like I spoke of a minute ago. Do I want to hold them? No, I don't. But that's just what we're looking at for now. So we'll go to the last slide, just an overview of the budget changes. On the personnel changes, there's no full-time employees increased. We did reclass one of our officer positions to a sworn position. That's a property evidence room specialist. That'll come in for the cost savings as well. I mentioned the pay and overtime increase. That comes from our stat plan and merit. Then our benefits increase, that's TMRS, and we've talked about that already too. Our regular O&M, no enhancements or budget requests were added, only base budgets. And that comes down to the cost of doing business, our uniforms, our body armor increases. Software licenses, like I spoke of to Councilman Betcher, those increase every year. And then equipment calibrations, the Faro scanner I spoke of earlier, that has to be calibrated every year. And then our patrol and training supplies, and those are going to be our blood kits, our test kits, our targets that we use for the range. We did have one budget reduction in travel and training, just of $10,000.
Ma'am,
Councilmember Baltimore?
Chief, when we do that on travel and training, is that a permanent delay, or does that just mean we gotta make it up next year? These guys have to have all their required training set.
Correct. We look at other funding sources as well from the state that assist us with if we have a loss in something there in that area.
And then we are doing more of our training here at our public safety training facility as
Yes.
well, which I would think would cut down on travel expenses.
It does. We don't have to send people out
Right, that was one of our.
for the training or bring people in. That's very costly to us.
Great. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, that was it for me. Any
Okay.
other questions?
Okay, is everybody, any other questions for PD?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank y'all.
Chief.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, next up is Chief Campese to talk about fire, EMS, and public safety training facility.
All right. Lots of good questions this morning. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be with you all and share a little bit about a little bit of the highlights of what's going on, but then what our take has been on the budget this next year and how we're going to get through it. So try to move through this fairly quickly. A couple of highlights from 25 and going forward. Like one of the biggest ones that we want to continue to talk about is we graduated another 6 firefighters from paramedic school this last year, and so that just boasts and increases our numbers when it comes to firefighter paramedics who are certified to the ALS standard, the ability to provide the highest level of care that our medical director will allow us. And so it's been a huge win for us. It's really great to be able to hire people and send them through and train them the way we want them to operate and function in our organization. Another huge success was our recruitment and hiring of a new division chief who covers EMS. With my promotion and Chief Leverance's promotion, we needed to go find another rock star to join the team, and we found Chief Martin. He was assistant chief of EMS down in Victoria. So we brought him into the program, and he has hit the ground running and kept up exactly where Chief Leverance left off. And so he's done an amazing job for us, especially keeping us in this higher level of EMS delivery. When it comes to blood, he's been doing a lot of work with the county, and the state is promoting a blood program now. And so what we're seeing is the addition of that blood vending type machine that I was telling you guys about in the spring down in Fort Bend. We didn't land in Sugar Land, but it's close enough to us. But that affords us some opportunities to grow that program inside of our department. So he's been pretty instrumental with that as well. We talked about some deployments earlier. They're going to set up a new fund for us. That's a big win as well in tracking both on the fire side and obviously the budget side. We have done a lot of work on deployments and supporting. I'm very proud. You know, if you look at our region, there's about 10 people that are specially trained to a certain level of operations on incident management, and Sugar Land Fire Department employs 3 of them. And so they're highly sought after to the point of most agencies, when they're asked for a deployment, they say, hey, who can come help us? When Chief Leverance gets that call, they specifically ask for people by name. We want your guy to come lead our crews and come be in charge of strike teams and task force and all that kind of good stuff. So puts us on the map, makes us look good. Again, all reimbursable. Very, very important piece of that. Like, we get that money back for what we're paying them. And when I pay somebody here to work because they're out of town, we get reimbursed for that too. We get reimbursed for our assets that we send out.
Mayor? Chief, I just want to expand on that, because you and I were talking about this earlier. You said it right at the tail end. I want to make sure everybody understands that. When we send people out, we get reimbursed for their time and all that kind of stuff. We also get reimbursed for the equipment we send. So if they take a truck out there, they take the four-wheeler out there, whatever they take, we get a check to cover the cost of that equipment while it's being deployed as well. So that's huge. So.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Countywide incident management training. A few years ago, we focused on active violence, our work with the PD, fire and PD on active violence response, how we manage those incidents. We have also moved the fire department into taking a greater focus on how we manage fire incidents and other major incidents. And so what started as our desire to be better and to refresh our staff and get up to date with kind of what's going on in the industry, we started reaching out to our mutual aid partners, our neighbors. They come to these fires with us. We go to their fires. We started working together. That quickly turned into a county-wide approach. We've done some training out at the Public Safety Training Complex, and we've had 16 different fire departments come out and train with us, all in the interest that we're all operating in the similar, well, I shouldn't say similar, the same manner when it comes to how we set up an incident, how we manage an incident to make sure that, one, the job gets done, we have positive outcomes, and more importantly, everybody comes home safe. FIFA, Chief White talked about FIFA, and it was an all-year thing. And we look back, we spent more than a year planning for FIFA and getting ready for what you guys all got to experience when it comes to our position on EMS safety out there, just making sure people were cooled off and people didn't overheat and had everything that they needed, as well as the work that the Fire Marshal's Office did to maintain occupancy loads and egress and all those kind of things. So huge work, very, very good for us. I'm pleased that, you know, we were able to prepare and ramp up to a level, and then as we saw an opportunity to be efficient and scale that back based on what we were seeing, we did. We took immediate action to scale that back and only operate at the level we needed to.
So I'm really glad we were able to assist with the Hill Country flood response and other major events. And I know we got reimbursed for that. Do we get reimbursed from like a state emergency fund, or how does the reimbursement come from?
Yeah, so if it's the fire side, what they call TIFMAS deployments, that money's usually coming back from the Texas Department of Emergency Management. If it's the EMS side, which is called EMTF, Emergency Medical Task Force, those type of responses are coming back out of Department of State Health Services. So it's coming from the state.
Okay, and then thank you again to police, fire, and all the other departments of the city for all of your hard work over the past year to make sure that the thousands of people who came here for the FIFA viewing parties had a very safe experience here.
Yeah, you bet, absolutely. And the you know, on the deployment thing, it's important for me to tell you guys, we don't leave anything from this city that this city is suffering from, right? We were always prepared here. You know, we had folks in the hill country working their way back when this other storm popped up down around Florida. Looked like it was coming this way, and Chief Leverance was all over that in terms of getting those folks home. You know, so Sugar Land's #1 priority. We don't deploy anywhere if anything's going to affect us. You know, this is all extra. And I appreciate y'all's support on that. It's a force multiplier just in training and experience that those personnel get that they don't get here on their regular shifts. You know, so they come back and we benefit from that. Some efficiencies. I think I talked to you guys in the spring about some of the reductions we've been doing, and another highlight, you know, we took in 4 new ambulances this year, so all of our frontline ambulances are pretty much brand new. And when we start restocking those trucks last year, we start looking at inventories again and making sure the state tells us we have to carry a certain amount of everything on the truck. We take that a step further and make sure we're carrying enough for us to handle business to go from call to call to call. But at the same time, we got inventories surplus at the stations, and then we have a central warehouse where we keep all the main stuff. And so just really trying to do some work to dive in to make sure like we're not overstocking, we're not spending too many dollars we don't need to, because you'll see, and Shalay showed it earlier, but like EMS supplies are costly. You know, when you talk about inflation, like there's a set, but then there's EMS supply inflation. It looks a little different, you know. So huge win for our team on that. Realign some training hours. When we talk about overtime, talk about the dollars that are spent, whether it's built-in overtime that just naturally occurs in our regular shift schedule. When it comes to training, a lot of that is getting done off duty, so that's where we're spending a lot of overtime on training. Operations has been working really hard to figure out how can we do more of that on duty, and the answer is like through partnerships with our neighboring agencies. And so I'll give you an example. We did some company training earlier this week, and the chief told me in passing the other day that it was great, but one of the guys that he really wanted out there and really wanted part of all the training was running Ops 1 that day as the EMS supervisor, and he ran calls the whole time. He didn't get to attend training. And so when we train on duty, we still have calls for service. And so how do we balance that out? And so we've worked with Missouri City and Richmond and even Northeast to work on some agreements there where, hey, we're going to pull a couple of trucks. We want them dedicated to this training today because they have to get this. And so Missouri City will send a company to back in and run some calls in our city for us. And then likewise, when they're doing it, we'll go over and reciprocate. We've been having each other's backs like that for years, outside of just emergency response, but like backing in and covering each other. We do it very frequent. So it's been a win for us to be able to take a few of these training opportunities, use some help from outside from our partners, and get focused while these guys are on duty. So we're saving some overtime dollars there. And then this last one here, reprioritized the community risk reduction, the fire inspectors. There's 5 guys that are covering this whole city when it comes to fire inspections, permit review, plan reviews, and then the operational permits, you know, for a restaurant or for some type of business that requires that on a regular basis. We have to get out there and we have to conduct these. And they also pay for those, right? So that's a revenue generator. So we got to make sure, 1, that we're keeping up with them, but 2, every one that we do benefits the city. They restructured their schedule, who does what and how they're doing it and changing it up, trying to focus on some succession planning in there too, letting the younger guys learn what the older guys know. But that's been a huge win for us. We saw about a 30% increase in operational permits this year by restructuring that and refocusing our attention. So it helps us on the revenue side as well. Metrics, I don't expect y'all to read each one of those. They're just there for examples to show you. They're just there for examples to show you everything we're watching. We are watching everything. You see these at the annual report, but response times, effective response force time, and just like Chief White spoke about, you know, he had one that dipped down to 33. We'll have an effective response force that we made we got everybody together only like 80% of the time. And then we had one that was 100% of the time. Well, there was only 2 fires that quarter, you know, so it works out. So you just got to watch the numbers, but that's just to illustrate the work that we're doing with performance measures and tracking. We look at a lot of different things, and so all that drives our decision making and helps us paint the picture what the future looks like. We have a couple of dashboards that have been essential that a lot of folks can access. The one on the bottom right, the quality assurance dashboard, our medical director takes a look at that. He's watching what our providers are doing. when it comes to how they write their reports and certain types of high acuity calls. We're looking at them and we're making sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing there. Financial summary for us, we're looking at about almost $2 million increase next year. Salary and benefits there you can see is the biggest. And so like the whole conversation has been this morning, a lot of that is our overtime budget. And then there's been a huge piece of that, just right sizing that overtime budget, making sure that it's exactly what it should be so that we can track and stay within those limits. Step pay, there's some in there, TMRS, things like that. If you look through, our purchase services are staying kind of flat. We've tried to rework a few of our contracts and programs and make sure that we're just not overkill. We don't have too much that we don't need. And then professional services takes a dip through some of that working on those contracts. Not so much that we're giving anything up or we're doing anything less. We're just trying to be more efficient about all those things. Capital, you'll see, there's kind of a dip in 26 and 27 when it came to capital. A lot of the big ticket purchases that we're looking forward on are GO bond funded deals, right? So they're not sitting in our budget there. So apparatus, station replacement, station renovations, things like that. And then repairs and maintenance, supplies, obviously EMS supplies, I've talked about that, but repairs and maintenance as well. We got an increase there because it does cost more to fix things and to buy new things as we go. Questions on that budget slide? The biggest changes, the one you're probably most interested in and that we need to share with you guys.
Councilor Jacobson, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry, I skipped ahead. I was looking at the next slide. Is this what I think it is? We're pausing our fire paramedic training?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Isn't this what makes us extraordinary?
It is. It is.
Saving $220,000?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Let's talk about it. The $220,000 in our quest to find reductions and find an opportunity to save some dollars this year, we took a look at our paramedic school program, how we train paramedics. That center picture there is the group that we hired last year. And in that picture, there's 3 of those individuals that are firefighter basics who came to work with us with the expectation we're going to send them to paramedic school. That was our plan. $220,000, a big part of that is overtime. Paying for school, tuition, fees, all that is not a lot compared to the total. What cost us there is that we have to pay them when they go to school. If it's a school day that they're on shift, I got to pull them off shift, send them to school. I got to pay somebody overtime to come ride their seat, right? So there's a lot of dollars in overtime there. When we look at this and we look at where we're at today and what our numbers look like, we've done a lot of great work through budget. In the last 2 years, we've put 16 people through paramedic school, and they're rock stars. We've had a couple of them move on to other agencies, but that was some performance issues, and so it just is what it is. But we sit today at 56 firefighter paramedics. Just at that firefighter rank, the men and women that are riding ambulances and fire trucks, bouncing back and forth, 56 of them are firefighter paramedics. We have a very comfortable number that around 45, a little higher. The fact that we're at 56, we got 2 more that are waiting to test. That'd be 58 once they pass, because we're sure they'll pass. We're in a good spot this year. We're in a good spot going forward through just this next year. It's kind of like the conversation about the police officers. We're going to pause for a second. We're going to hold this. We're going to work through. We're in a good spot with firefighter paramedics. Everything we do, the reason we want more is they're more versatile to us. And then they're not just on the ambulance. I have them on the fire trucks as well. We've invested a lot of ALS dollars in riding fire trucks that get to your house first while you're waiting on that ambulance to provide the highest level of care.
Councilor Jacobson?
So we have enough paramedics to go out on every call, at least one on every call?
Yes, sir. More than one.
Mayor.
Councilor Wanda?
You may get to this, and if so, tell me to shut up. But you indicated that you've got 3 of your new hires that were hired with the promise that they'll get sent to paramedic school, and now we're pulling that promise. Do we risk them saying, you didn't give me what you promised me, so I'm going to go someplace else?
No, I don't think so, and promise is probably not the word we want to use. They sign a condition of employment, realizing that I am signing on, I want to work for you, and the fire department reserves the right to send me to paramedic school, and then once I go to paramedic school, they have requirements. They got to pass within so many attempts and things like that. They've hired in knowing where they're at. Is there some disappointment because when they become a paramedic, they're just better professionally, and they jump a pay grade, right?
Yeah.
Yes, there's some disappointment there. But I think the biggest answer to this is that we're not ruling it out. We're not telling them you're never going to be. This is just for now, where we're at with the budget. We need to hold off on sending these folks to school.
And well, let me say one thing. This just indicates that even though the proposed expenditures are up for FY27 over this year, this is just a representative of the $18 million of requested budget items that were left out. So, I mean, we are really, really working hard, even though this entails a tax rate increase, to keep that as small as possible while still maintaining the high quality of services that our residents expect. So this $18 million just wasn't made up stuff. It was real items that our staff had to work extremely, extremely hard and make some really tough decisions on to get us to where we are today. Who is next? Councilor Singleton?
Yeah. So I would say that you are, of course, the best judge, but just because there's a pressure on tax, and I know there is a pressure, but don't let that cloud the judgment. If you really need these people to be trained, we will find 220K somewhere else.
Yes, sir.
But, get them trained, because we don't want to be falling short of them now or even in near future.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. And as Mr. Goodrum spoke earlier, we've had lots of conversation about this, and we realize we're in a good spot this year. We just, it affects us when we hire. We're hiring firefighter basics all the way up, or just firefighter paramedics. We just ran a hiring process to fill 4 vacancies of firefighter paramedics, and we got those, right? So these 4 vacancies that I have right now, we have people in the pipeline now. They're paramedics as well. That'll send that number up over 60. Granted, lieutenants are about to promote, EOs will promote. Those are firefighter paramedics that move to the higher rank on a fire truck. And so, it gives us this year to move through it, but I appreciate that. We've looked really close at it.
Councilor Watley.
Thank you, Mayor. I think you just hit on my point, because I don't know if you guys watch fire department as much as I do, but we know that we have firefighters that are moving out, and they carry the EMS part of that with them. So if we don't put this back in place, if we don't commit to putting the program back in place, our fire department will fall back to where it was, and the EMS program, the paramedic program, will not be a part of it, which I think is going to be not where we want our program. So, first of all, I don't know why we can't find $220,000 to finish out these people we promised. But secondly, we've got to commit to putting it back at some point very soon, I'd say next year, because we can't keep this going and keep expecting our fire department to maintain what it's had for the last, 5 years. We built it this way for a reason. It's exemplary. It's probably one of the best fire departments in the country, I know the state, and we're going to lose it if we don't put this back.
Mike?
Yeah, I disagree with that statement. You just hired 4 firefighter paramedics. 4 firefighter paramedics. They're paramedics. You're not having to spend $220,000 sending them through paramedic school because you hired paramedics, correct? Yes. And if you have openings this year, you're going to be able to hire those positions, correct?
Hopefully so. With paramedics.
You can hire paramedics in those positions. And so this isn't going to cause harm. The reality is, it can be really simple to say, public safety is exempt from everything, right? But we also have a culture of an organization. We have an entire city working really hard to meet the needs of the residents. And culturally, if they can, if just the concept of public safety's overall spend increasing, and then they're having significant they're having significant reductions today just to help fund. And so it's a bigger thing, and the chief can sit here and tell us if he thinks this is gonna cause harm to the department, and if he does, that he needs to say that, but our public safety chiefs are managing their departments, and they're trying to be as efficient as they can, and that's not a bad thing and it's not causing harm to the community, in my opinion.
Follow up?
I agree with what you're saying. If we can hire paramedics that already are, then there is no use for a school, correct? There needs to be no training. But we need to look at one or the other, and we have to budget more for a paramedic trained firefighter than we do for a firefighter startup. So there is a balance. You either pay for it or you buy it.
But every day you would prefer to hire a paramedic. I mean, it's just, you would. And so I think with our compensation where it's at now, we're in a better position to do that than we were in the past, but.
And that makes sense as well. We just need to budget for one or the other.
And this is just being paused for one fiscal year. It's not being terminate. Yeah, that's
I'm
fine.
gonna close this hopefully. We greatly appreciate the work that you and your whole team and police do. And never would I want to minimize that, never would I want to take anything away from that. But at the same time, I also trust that you will be candid with us. And just because your two bosses are sitting in this room, if you see something that needs to be addressed, you need to let us know. Because we can overrule them. They may not think so, but we can.
No, you can and you should.
Yeah, exactly. That's my point. That's my point. I just want to make sure you guys know that you have our back, and we need you to be able to be willing to be candid and stand up and say, hey, time out here.
We've had a lot of candid conversation internally as well, and if I felt like this was going to hurt us, or this was going to diminish the ALS response that's showing up at your house this year, then this would be a different conversation.
That's all we ask.
All right, any other questions? That's pretty much it. Other things they've talked about today?
Councilmember Betcher.
I do a quick question.
Yes, sir.
So some of our surrounding cities were proposing reducing their budgets. Any impact on Sugar Land because of that?
I talked to the Stafford Fire Chief the other day, and they're looking at some cuts, and I just asked them, man, is that gonna affect people? And it affects people. And I don't think that necessarily has an impact on us. He's gonna staff those trucks one way or another, whether it's full-time or part-time. We request them, if it's close to Stafford, we get a truck from them. Rosenberg, not so much, you know? But everybody seems like they're kind of dealing with the same thing. I don't see anything that those other cities are doing fire department-wise affecting us.
Anything else?
And this is, I meant to ask this when police was up here, so it's not necessarily directed to you, probably more a budget question, but as we continue to grow, what little bit of growth we do have in our city, a lot of that is going to be north of the tracks, and we still, to this day, only have one police station. Are we considering putting something north of the tracks?
As far as I know, we do not have a consideration for another police station.
No, yeah, it's not in our 5-year CIP.
I know that, that's why I was asking.
Yeah, and we can give a PD to decide if they need a substation or whatever. We're still a relatively small geographic city, but yeah.
Anything else? Okay,
I
Councilor
have a
Singh.
question, not so much on the operation, more on the budgeting planning. Do we get any grant from the Fort Bend County for the EMS? Because we don't really use their services, because we have our own better service. So we should be getting some grant because they are supplying service to the other.
Go ask them.
Go to Commissioner's Court, go to Commissioner's Court. Talk to the
Budget this year. We, not necessarily from Fort Bend County, we get a few dollars, like you guys approved it Tuesday night in council from CETRAC from the region, for some reimbursement, dollars there on equipment. That's usually what we see. So, we do partner with Fort Bend quite a bit. They're probably in this city more than you realize, backing us up when we're short, and we run for them quite a bit as well, but that's all on mutual aid agreements.
And just the context of it, that Fort Bend didn't want to lose EMS in Sugar Land. It was a council decision because the response times and the metrics for success were not what this council expected at that time. So it was a tremendous investment in that, but it wasn't something the county was wanting to have happen. They liked the model as it was. So I wouldn't assume they would be willing to give us.
Down to give us money.
Okay. Anything else for Chief?
Great job, guys.
Okay, thank you, Chief, appreciate it. Okay, next up is Councilor Burke.
Good morning. We'll dive right into this. So, Public Works, I know y'all saw the screen last year. I'm showing it again. Just want to remind y'all that we're first responders out there with police and fire. We make sure that the roads are open so that they can go do their job and provide that level of service.
Mayor, may I?
Go ahead.
I'm gonna jump in real quick, Herb. I'm gonna tell a little story.
Yes, sir.
2 or 3 days ago in my neighborhood, on an evening time, nobody's working like that, a tree fell across the road and literally blocked that road. And within an hour, Public Works was out there getting that tree off of that road so that we could get out of our neighborhood. And this was after hours, and I just kudos to you guys. You're people, when we talk first responders, we always talk about those other guys, but you guys are just as important, so thank you.
We want to thank you. I appreciate that. We want to make sure our roads are open. Moving on.
Same thing in Greatwood. Yes, sir.
Moving on to some.
Sorry.
Some departmental highlights. I do want to take this moment to thank some of the other departments in this city, such as IT, Data and Innovation, our engineering department. Some of these that I'm going to hit on would not be possible without their success. So, for example, our mosquito study, I know that I brought that forth back in February. We've seen with that change from looking at our data and evaluating it, we've roughly saved about $10,000 in that changed approach. Our lumen tracker study, we've already done the pilot in Woodstream. You can see some before and after pictures of that in the top picture to show that trimming around streetlights does improve visibility amongst the roadways. Our CDL program, we brought that in-house 2 years ago. We've expanded that this year to our police department that is a commercial vehicle enforcement officer that received his CDL through that program, enabling him to do his job more efficiently and better. Over the last 2 years, roughly, we've saved about $60,000 via insourcing that versus outsourcing it. We've also were recognized last year by the American Society of Highway Engineers for our next-gen ITS AI detection system that we have on our traffic system. Also, we had Lend a Hand this year. That was 10 properties that we helped, over 300 volunteer hours. And then also our citywide crosswalk program. We have over 1,000 crosswalks on our arterial streets and collector streets. And so we evaluated 116 of those throughout the city this year, and 78 of those 116s received enhancements, whether it was signage or striping. Also, we did have a staff member last year that did respond to the Hill Country for that rain event as well, alongside fire. Moving on, as far as our operational performance and efficiencies, this is our sidewalk tracker on the left-hand side that is open to the public, that they're able to view where their sidewalk service request is at in the queue, whether it's been completed, is it coming up, or when is it scheduled, and if it's been approved or not. So we're constantly looking at different programs and evaluating our metrics internally. On the right, you can see the top bar graphs is our service request historically in the blue. A few years ago, we were extremely high on that service request level. We identified that in the 2024 GEO bond as a priority. The voters approved it, and you can see that when we have funding, for example here, is that we have a high service request, we have an increase in funding, we drop our service request, so on and so forth. Right now, we're currently sitting about a 14-month time frame on our service request. And as the next 2 years go on in the GEO bond, we anticipate to see a small growth. But then with the funding identified in the 2029 fiscal year, we do see a drastic decrease again in our service request, and then the future will behold itself. Moving on, as far as our traffic department, the left-hand side is our right-of-way permits that we issue. Is we do track how many right-of-way permits are being applied for in the city. And then also, just because it's a permit doesn't mean the number of permits do not dictate the number of linear feet, because those right-of-way permits that get sent over to our utilities department to go locate our utility in our city. And so just because it's one permit, it can be 10 feet in utility marking, or it could be 5,000 or 10,000 feet. And then also on the right-hand side, we do track our traffic sign replacements. We have over 17,000 in the city that we replace. We aim for about 10% a year, and we're right on target with that, because we're about 9.9% as we speak.
And going back to the prior slide, so you said we've got about a 14-month backlog on sidewalks right now? Okay, and what's our backlog on, I guess what you call like bird bass, or some really needed, I guess, work on our city streets?
So on potholes, we have other maps just like this that we track internally, that we go and locate those. We're estimating that. You should get an update later on that. But we track that internally as far as the number of potholes that we have, that we've identified through our, it was called, going blank on the name of the vendor, but our street assessment that we had done, and we're prioritizing how we're going to utilize our GEO bond funding to go actually do the actual repair to that, instead of just patching the pothole. So that funding, as far as roadway repairs, is in the out years of the GEO bond. This is going back to that award from the American Society of Highway Traffic Engineers. This is some information coming out of our next-gen ITS system that we have. As you can see on the left-hand side, this is one intersection where we can, it's counting the number of vehicles going through an intersection. And at 70% of the time on this corridor at Highway 6 in Lexington, 70% of the traffic arrived at that intersection on a green light. 30% did not. Now, when you flip that intersection and you look at Lexington at Highway 6, those numbers do switch, but we do want to make sure that we're moving traffic. So we're getting much more analytics out of our traffic system than what we were before with this investment. And so this is all aimed at optimizing traffic flow and getting traffic moving to the city. We also are getting more information than what we were before, because with this system, we can tell red light runners. So the graph on the right is Highway 59 and Highway 99. And we can tell that certain directions at that intersection have more aggressive driving. We look at what are some implications for that. Obviously, there's some construction right now at that near that intersection that is causing that aggressive behavior. We can then coordinate with PD to go out for an enforcement mechanism if we see an increase in that. Moving on, this is our internal department facilities, which maintains our vertical constructions. And so we've had an concerted effort over the last 2 years of focusing on increasing our preventative maintenance within our facilities over just relying on service requests. Because if we're focusing on preventative maintenance and maintaining our assets, they should last longer. And so you can see from FY25 to 26 that this year we've had an increase of work orders. We've had a drastic increase in preventative maintenance, but the effect of that is we've been closing our work order times more effectively and also a decrease into overtime. And so with that, I'm going to move on to some of our budget changes. These are all the budget efficiencies or reductions that we have in Public Works this year. The professional services for frozen dessert sampling, that was a change at the state legislature that we can no longer perform that, so that is right-sided like that. Moving on is municipal custodial services. We're seeing 3 day porters out of that. We currently have 5 in the city, so we're dropping to 2 day porters that will have to rotate throughout the city throughout the day to service on a as needed basis. So we're seeing that change. And then also on our repair and maintenance, specifically in our right-of-way department, we're seeing a $10,000 reduction on land clearing, hydro seeding, and tree replacements. And lastly, a CPI increase on repair and maintenance.
And so the pavement lifting program, you're cutting that by about.
I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Pavement lifting program. We did cut 148 out of that. That was moved over to our stormwater fee because in pavement.
Oh, okay, so it's not going away, it's being moved.
In pavement and lifting, we convey stormwater. And so we right-sized the funding with the correct fund that's coming from for the service, the fund to the service. So that's just moving that over to the stormwater fee and utilizing that fund better.
Okay. Councilor Watley?
Yes, thank you. So for the street, roads, bridges, and our right-of-ways, $10,000 reduction, are you doing, where did that go? Are you doing that in-house or?
No, so on like land clearing, we're going to eliminate that contract. That's specifically for our right-of-way division and some internal land. We are doing a much better job at maintaining our assets. I'm sorry.
You're doing it in-house now?
We will be moving that into in-house if needed. Our hope is that we should not be doing any land clearing. So we've had to address some areas of overgrowth. Most notably, that can be along retention ponds or other right-of-ways that we maintain that are not so public-facing. And then the hydro seeding, we typically don't have to do that unless it's been a disturbance to the dirt or we've had to do some kind of work. And then we're reducing the tree replacements. Brings me to the final slide of our financial summary. So you do see 2 areas that did increase, which is salary and benefits and purchase services, which the lady covered earlier, which was an increase to electricity.
Okay, Councilor Stingle?
Can we get a breakdown, not today, but later on, of those 1.1 million increase on the purchase service? Because that's almost 33% increase. And as we know, electricity is increasing 6%, water is in 3%. I'm just curious to see what is causing 33% increase.
It's all the electricity and water and our other utility costs.
And so that line item, 96.7% is for utilities, electricity, water, gas. And then we also We added about a 25,000 square foot public safety training facility last year. We have an animal shelter coming on board this year, about 19,000 square feet, I believe it is, and then another 50,000 square feet police headquarters that'll be coming online in the future. So we are increasing our square footage in the city to provide those services.
Yeah, basically what I'm saying, just if you can send us later on a breakdown of individual water, etc., for about 1.1 million increase, what it was in 26 and what it will be in 27. Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you, Herc.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, next up is Parks and Recreation, Kimberly Carroll.
All right, I was just gonna come up because we're getting close to 10:30.
Oh, so, well, so you just want to wrap up questions and start with Parks next week?
Yes, if
Okay,
that's
yeah.
okay.
We don't want to rush you, Kimberly, so.
I was excited. I'll be excited next week too.
If you want to jump in, I just don't know.
Be excited next
Warning,
week.
like
Okay.
next time you have to deal with this energy first thing. So I'm just warning y'all ahead of time.
We'll look forward to you. Next Thursday morning, first thing.
I mean, we can go to parks if,
Now, let's just go ahead and let you do the wrap-ups, the key takeaways, and sort of go over the schedule of our next workshops and the key public hearings and votes and everything, and then we'll call it a day, because I don't want to rush Kimberly, because she does have 14 pages to go through, and there's going to be a lot of questions.
she's very, very quick
She's
though.
fast, but she's probably not quite that. So we don't want to rush Parks, so.
So I just wanted to end with some key takeaways with the general fund. I know we're going to cover it again in the future, but the key thing is this maintains the services our residents value. And that we have worked really hard as a city to find reductions and efficiencies. That's $7.5 million in the last 2 budget cycles. The 5-year forecast remains structurally balanced, and investing in the future is our focus, but we're really focused also on while protecting today. So it's a combination of making sure that we're not just thinking about today, but all of our decisions impact our future in that 5-year forecast. So with that, this is the budget workshop. My recommendation, instead of having our presentations next week to finalize, as we have to have our property tax conversation, that we move it to the 3rd and 4th week, if that's okay. Because we want to talk about our capital improvement projects, which is connected with property tax as well. So that will leave next week for that. And then the 3rd week is our enterprise funds. We do want to have the corporations that week, as that will set the stage for 4A and 4B final recommendation for the budget timeline. But we do have the 4th Thursday open for any of these additional conversations.
Okay, does anyone have any final questions over anything that was covered today before we wrap up?
Can I use an observation?
Yes,
And a
yes,
question?
Councilman.
Great job, as always. I continue to be so impressed. Every time I have to interface with a city of a Sugar Land employee, I'm impressed. So thank you guys for everything we do. For anybody who might be watching this, I want to make sure everybody understands that Sugar Land is one of the best places to live in this country. And that's not Jim Vonderhaar's opinion. That's not the opinion of anybody in this room. That's by an unbiased third party, Newsweek, World, all kinds of entities have graded us as the best place to live in the country. And it didn't happen by mistake. It happened because we've had good leadership over the years. I'm not talking about us. All this happened way before I was around. But we have something to be really, really proud of. And we've worked really hard to get where we are. And let's don't let one budget change that. We have some tough decisions to make. If we do have to raise taxes, nobody wants to do that. And I think everybody needs to remember that the people in this room all live here too. So when we raise taxes, we're raising it on ourselves. So we don't do that lightly. And if there's anybody that thinks that we shouldn't be doing that, or they think that we should be reducing our expenses, well, as we go through this process and we talk about all these different services that we have, which one of those do you want to reduce? Which one of those do you want to do away with so that you can reduce that expense? So let's just make sure we keep that in mind. This is a great place to live. We have 90% satisfaction, in our city for the people that live here. But that doesn't happen by chance, and it's not cheap, it's not free. So let's just make sure we take all of that into consideration as we continue down this budget process.
Okay. Well, anyway, I want to thank staff the entire staff for all of your hard work on the budget, particularly our budget team. I'd like to thank Chalet and Assistant Chief White, Chief Campese, and Hurt for presenting today. And I'd like to thank Council for supporting my request to reinstate public comment on workshops, because I felt that was something that was a missing element last year. And I think it's just really important to get that feedback earlier in the process instead of waiting until consideration of action. And I would like to thank everyone, our 11 people who came out and publicly commented this morning. So I said we'll look forward to seeing you back here next Thursday. And Kimberly will have to wait for your enthusiasm a little bit.
It's all right, it's all right, it's all right. I'll bring the thunder.
So having no further business, ready, Rob?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. We're adjourned.
Can we go to council?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll do it.